6th, 2011, for the Harb for Radnor Township. I wanted to ask if we have 225 Wayne Avenue and 427 Midland Avenue here yet. Okay. Is anybody from Luella Court here? I mean, the applicant who's presenting. Is that there? Okay. What I would like to do is to shift items 4 and 5, which are South Wayne Avenue and Midland, to before the 40 Luella Court, so that Luella would be the last one. And if anybody doesn't, if the other applicants don't have any problems with that, we're going to check. Well, we still have 2 to do before anything. So let's see, Harb 2011-10-407 Luella Avenue. Enclose existing first floor rear porch and incorporate into kitchen space. Anybody here to present?
Good evening, board members. Hopefully you'll remember me from a few months ago. Same property, different project. My name is Eric Bones. I'm here to represent the owner, Mr. Vince Tegg.
Can you, hey, Eric, can you make sure that you're talking to that?
Yes.
We don't have any handheld mics tonight, so if you come up, you're going to have to kind of pull that thing around with you as you go.
These are 3 pictures that show the front and both sides of the rear porch that we're proposing to enclose. And this is a sketch plan of the proposed enclosure. Shows the picture of the existing property, and then a sketch rendering of the proposed and some elevations of what the proposed enclosure will look like.
Could you go back to the main photograph, this one, and point that out? Thank you.
So the structure exists. There's living space above, and right now the first floor is really just a rear porch with some area to the left that is storage. And the client would like to enclose that, incorporate that to their kitchen. It would become a kind of a mudroom storage area, and it would allow the now kitchen table to move back out into that area and open up the kitchen floor plan a little. There are some original timbers. The front elevation, you see 4 timbers, the 2 on the outside corners and the 2 intermediates. And then I believe on the side elevation, the open side elevation, again, the corner and the 2 timbers. I believe one of the side timbers on each elevation, side elevation, is original. And we would be working with those because they align with the upper, and we would be making no changes to the upper. So those, the original ones would stay intact, as well as the false ones would stay intact because they vertically align with the second floor. There is a set of steps presently that service that rear porch. They are not original. They would be removed and basically in the exact position that they exist now, a new set would be installed and they would be serviced. Rather than approaching it from the front, they would be approached from the side.
So the existing stucco and timber detailing is going to be continued around the open area, and then windows would be inserted where stucco was not. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
One of the small window that exists in the front now actually services just like a storage closet. That would be removed. That is not original. And then,
We put another window in there?
not in that area, no, because that will become storage off of the mudroom. So there'd be no reason really to want to see in that. But immediately to the right of that will be the front door, or the door that accesses that. And there will be a, not a full side light, but a, like a 3/4 side light that will look more like a window.
So the opening with the timbers remains the same, but it's being filled with a door and side light?
Correct, door, side light, and then immediately to the right and wrapping around the side on the right side will be windows. That's where the proposed banquette dining room or breakfast area seating will be.
And the windows appear to complement the ones existing on the second floor?
They will match.
And is it true, as I'm reading this, that the footprint, except for the staircase, the footprint remains the same?
There's no additional encroachment. The porch square footage and parameters remain the same. The actual, what will be removed is the present steps, and they will be altered, but they will remain in the same distance.
And this elevation cannot be seen from the street, correct?
This is an aerial view of the house, and I'll point to the rear of it, which is just left of the garage. Here's the garage. This is the roof line of the second floor of that area. So it is to the extreme rear of the property, and I don't even know if you can see it from Pembroke. Although the neighbor probably from the rear
Well, I
can
think
see
this
it.
is one of those projects that, you know, you're not increasing a footprint, you're using like materials and existing materials and repurposing a space for a different use, and it's not in the public viewing right away, so usually these things they don't have as much weight as if it was on the front of the building. But what you're describing and what you've done in the past here is all appropriate for, you know, the construction, the time period, and I think you're going to be at this house forever, I think, right?
I don't know, he may.
Anybody have any other?
No.
Okay, motion?
Motion to approve a certificate of appropriateness?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 5 ayes, no noes, and you're good to go. Now, this is, again, just to remind you, this is an approval for the Harb. You still have to go through building permits and all the other fun stuff. But you'll get a letter, and then, when's the commissioners' meeting? The next one? End of the month? Okay, so they'll look at this and approve it, and then that'll be, or they'll comment on it, let's say. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next on the agenda is Harb 2011-11, 209 Midland Avenue. Existing patio with existing pergola above to be rebuilt. New steps to covered porch. New two-story garage. Second floor sunroom to be rebuilt. New third floor addition with shed dormer.
Hi, my name is Mark Asher. I'm an architect and I'm representing the Desai's. And my office has designed these additions and renovations, so we'll take you through them. I had a scale with me. Let me grab that real quick.
Okay. Let's see.
I think this booklet is fairly self-explanatory, but we'll take you through this thing. The cover represents the front elevation as we're proposing. The building, of course, is this little historic structure in South Wayne. It's early turn of the century building. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's a quirky little structure. It's not. That's as Wayne is so well known for its Queen Anne's and its Victorians and its shingle styles and so on. This is a building that's a little bit of neither fish nor fowl. It has some four-square aspects to it. There's some craftsman issues aspects to it. But a lovely little cousin anyway. So we're going to renovate this building, facelift it, and add on to the back. The square, of course, represents the existing building. The shaded areas are the additions. It's about a 600 square foot addition of kitchen, family room, new bedrooms, and so on that you'll see in a minute. We're also adding a new garage. We've already been to the zoning board to seek some side yard relief for that was granted. So you're our second step on the hit parade here. Of course, existing photographs of the building. Again, the front elevation up in the upper left will remain exactly like that. The fenestration, everything, nothing changes. We're going to remove and replace the pergola before it falls off. And again, we'll take you through the materials of this in just a minute. But details that we're either mimicking or replicating, I think the lower left, the eave detail, these wide plank soffits that we'll be mimicking in the new addition. And also, while I'm looking at this, the stucco banding and the cedar shakes also replaced. A quick tour of this building and plan. The light yellow is the existing structure. The front is down page to me. We're making a little live-in walkout basement as the site slopes away from us. The orange area, again, is the new, and you can see on the second floor, or on which is really the main level, living level, the first floor, a new family room and eating area, mud room, back door that's going to be served by this new driveway and new garage. The light yellow, of course, is the main building again that is intact and just being renovated. And then the shaded area is that new or existing pergola area that we're replacing. The second floor area, again, the light yellow is existing, though we're, again, moving some rooms around in here. This is an interesting little section, this little pop-out here where the chair is. That's an existing little glass sleeping porch that we're replicating. It sits on top of the pergola, interestingly enough. So that's coming back to life. And again, the orange, 2 new bedrooms, bathroom. And then there's a small third floor that we're tucking into the roof system that's just a little TV area. Again, front elevation that really just bringing this building back to life. You can see the new addition popping out on the right in the background, but again, the trellis, the cedar shakes, the new windows, new roofing, and so on and so forth. The new garage in the way in the back, just faintly, I think you can see that, at least I can. Again, side elevation, this little pop-out area here is their dinette space. Again, matching materials, and again, as sympathetic a roof line as we can muster here. Rear elevation, again, same material, same roof lines. There's a brick chimney that runs up the center of the new addition. And then the existing side elevation. So from this point forward to this point to my right is the existing building. Looks just like that, just nicer materials. The existing pergola, that window or that sleeping porch I mentioned is here, and then here's our new garage. Of course, representative types in the neighborhood, neighbors, again, small scale, single-family homes that I think we're being sympathetic to. And just again, more of the same. This is the neighbor to the right. Here's their driveway. And I think that's it. Just this board represents the colors and the materials that we're going to hopefully apply to this building. It's a cedar shake around the base of the building. Again, the stucco up in this banding here. All the exterior running trim is actually a synthetic, but the good synthetic. And here's our brick of the chimney that it's a brick I use quite a bit. It's sort of a soft edge, very historic feel to it. And then the base of the building gets, the brick is only on the chimney. The rest of the building gets matched with this existing stone and then the roofing material. And there you have it.
I have a question about the column. When you rebuild the columns, will that be smooth stucco, or will it be more of a rough stucco like it exists now?
It seems to me it's a pebbled stucco now.
Yeah.
And I think we would just replace that. I actually grew up in a house that was that pebbled stucco, and drove my parents crazy throwing a baseball against it, and the pebbles would fall off and land on this metal roof. I could just sort of hear it. It was a style of that time, So I think we really plan to just replace them in kind. So,
So you're gonna keep the pebble finish?
yes.
Okay. The plan
They're
says
the
you're
same
going-
columns, though, they're the,
They're the same columns.
yeah.
I mean, I hope they don't fall down when the trellis
Right.
comes off, but, they seem to be fairly stable. I mean, they might need this sort of a new finish. We'll see how that finish goes.
And
but
the trellis is just being replaced with
the trellis
a
is
new
being
trellis.
replaced, right. Because again, it's fairly decrepit.
It's rotting.
very
It-
Right.
So the trellis will have the top will have the same detail as the shorter ends of the trellis or as the longer ones?
I think what we're really aiming to do here, let me grab the front elevation. If I look at the existing photograph in the middle here that shows this, it's sort of half trellis, half arbor.
Yeah.
Is really what it is. And it has these vines growing up over it. And what we're proposing to do here and here is actually drag that trellis straight across the columns and not have
Okay.
it as, right now, I suppose it's sort of an H shape in plan. There's an area over the front door, and there's an area over the, under that existing window seat. And how much of this is original, I don't know. It looks like it's been replaced. Whether it actually spanned both of these columns in its original form, I don't know. Whether it was even there in its original form, I don't know. And in fact, we had thought seriously about adding a covered porch to this building. But at the end of the day, we thought that the trellis was a nicer thing. And again, I think that the trellis is sort of the historical memory in a sense. You know, if you think about what this house looks like, probably nobody really thinks about what it looks like, but they probably remember the trellis. You know, so that's sort of the key. You
Yeah.
probably tear the house down, leave the trellis, and people wouldn't know. So that's what we plan to do, and we want to drag that trellis across the whole front. But to answer your question more directly, what I think the success of it is, and what the success of really any sort of appendage like this is, sort of a layering up in its hierarchy. There's a sort of a beam of a certain distance, and then a smaller purlin, and then a lattice, and then maybe even another, and then we'll grow stuff.
Well, I think taking it across probably takes it more back to its true, if it was in fact there. I mean, the Foursquare typically had a full porch across anyhow, so,
Yeah.
you know, why not bring that? I mean, it's kind of a cut-up thing the way it is now.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that detail. I mean, the plan, the elevations do say you're going to a smooth stucco, but I'm glad to see that you're going to go to the pebbled.
Well,
Even though you
let's
have bad
see
memories
again.
of it.
Again, there you are.
I have one question. I think it's on the east elevation. There's a double set of windows in kind of a paneled-looking area.
Right
Can we
here.
talk about that a little bit?
Well, if I go to, we think that was an existing porch at one point. So this foyer here was originally open. And it may have actually been on the reading room side of this building as well. And again, during the design, there was some fair amount of discussion of reopening these building areas and recapturing, especially the reading room side, as porch. But again, we sort of wandered away from that. We couldn't really find any precedent, and ones we did weren't very appealing. So the area over here, we thought was just sort of like a nice, that's how big the opening is, and let's use that as a sort of a memory stick of that existing opening. So it doesn't have to be there. We can certainly carry the siding directly through, but we wanted to reuse that opening and let everybody know it's there. So.
I have a question. The trim, the example of the trim you have there,
Yes.
is that going to be used roof trim where I see,
This.
where the-
This. Well, yes.
it looks,
We're going to match what's there. And, the technology is so good today that, it's a thing I talk about a lot to clients. To digress, I used to have this choice. I could make you a nice building that you had to have a painter living there, or I could make you a bad building that was synthetic. That's not the question anymore. Now the synthetics have caught up to us.
mm-hmm.
So this material, this one is AZAC, is typically is the product we use. We can match any profile that we want. We'll match this one, and we do paint it. When the product first came out, people thought it was white, you didn't have to paint it,
Right.
but that was not really true. The trick is you only have to paint it once. It's dimensionally stable and so on.
it looks like a very fine
Yep.
profile that
Yeah.
match.
Well, that's the thing. Cuts like wood, details like wood.
When you say that the new windows to have true divided light,
Yes.
are you replacing all the windows or just
Yes.
the ones in the addition?
No, we're replacing them. Yes.
And-
With a double hung, with again, a true divided light window.
And so they're wood? They'll be the same material or AZAC or?
If you, I think they'll be wood. If they're not wood, if it's a vinyl product in Anderson, for instance, which it still is, I'm looking over here at this Appella products that somebody has here, but again, it's one of those things where it's so nice, it's divided light inside and out, the spacer bar. It has the sort of shadow and the dimension that I think we all want in a historic building.
Did you consider safety windows?
Um,
I'm sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to say something.
I didn't, no.
You did not?
No.
Well, could you consider the possibilities of safety windows? Is that
Um,
possible? Yeah.
I know. Excuse me. There will be time for,
This is my first time, so I'm not.
I'm sorry. There's a public comment period that, actually, we skipped over the first one, but we will not forget that, the second one. But you'll get a chance for that.
Well, we're doing, pretty, I think, credible job here in a historical way. It's what my office does. It's, we're comfortable in this environment, and we're really, I think, making a thing that we're proud of. I'm at the same time, I'm not really a historicist. I'm not there to mimic every bead. I think there's a place for that. Here, we're just thrilled to bring this thing back to life. And the fringe benefit of this for this community is I have really nice clients moving in here who are going to live here, raise their kids here, and again, make a house that's energy efficient and has a sort of a nice message for the rest of the community. You know, how do you make a nice community? Well, you make a nice building, and you sort of guilt your neighbor into making a nice building too. So, you know, that's sort of our method. But
Weren't some of the windows, I wandered around, already replacement windows? I thought there were some.
there are some. There are some that are,
So you're
yeah,
replacing.
and again, there isn't this like historic building here we're saving. There's a building that's been nibbled about and storm windows and all kinds of, you know, unpleasant things. So.
I think, you know, what you've done I mean, you know, the Foursquare, as we mentioned, is kind of, has some eclectic qualities, and this
Yeah.
one certainly does. You know, the gable roofing is something that you see, sometimes not as big as this, but, you know, I think it gives you the utility you need in that third floor. And you give it, you know, sort of a nod on the rear elevation with that sort of shorter pent version, which is saying, well, this is a hip, but it's not, but, you know, you got to make a chimney work and all that kind of stuff. So I think the massing looks really well, and I don't really think that this little nod to this hole that you had in the side of the
Well, you know, it
house.
is possible to overthink the problem. I've been known to do that.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, that I would say is not a real important thing, since it's
Yeah.
gone now.
Yeah.
Why go back to it and then do this?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And then you have your, you know, your water table and your band and your window line will all,
Yeah, I think it'd be
Kinda lift
better.
up and-
Yeah, I think it's better.
and then if you go to the, you know, we are building a new garage here too, which everybody has to kind of remember. The front elevation of the garage, the gable end has that same sort of boarded material, and I was wondering if you guys would consider getting into a little bit of the stucco work in that area instead, since it is visible from the street. It's fairly significant.
Well, you know, I don't have a problem with it. I think, you know, that's
I know anyone else feels
as,
about that.
you know, it's certainly an appropriate place for the stucco, and maybe it's as good a solution, if not better, to sort of tie that main building to the thing. The board and batten was sort of a, you know, again, sort of a more informal material for a more informal structure, but, you know, the stucco is,
Well, if it's board and
works as
batten,
well.
that's different. I thought it was maybe a grooved cement board.
no, it's a board and batten.
Okay,
I don't have any problem with the board and batten at
yeah.
all.
Board and
I like
batten
it.
would
I
be
think
fine.
it's
like it.
totally appropriate.
And I think you have enough tie-in to the building that a little different,
Yeah.
appropriate.
I mean, I think the stucco would work too, but whichever. I personally think that the board and batten is, you know, it's a new building, but I think it's appropriate for the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. I just wasn't reading it that way, so sorry.
Okay, it's all right.
That's good. Anybody else?
I was just going to mention that I like your overall composition for the site as well as the house, that you've added on beautifully and kept the rectilinear
Hard
shape.
fought. It was hard fought.
I think
Thank
it all
you.
works together, comes together.
The other thing I'd just like to mention too is that I think the presentation that you gave us is really nice.
Thank you.
You know, you have all of the elevations here, you have all of the required photographs, you have the floor plan, and it's very easy for us to review and to look at. And when I went to the house to look at the house, you know, I could just take it out with me and look at it very easily.
Well, I serve on a board like this, so I would just kill for somebody to bring me one of these.
Well done.
It's really nice.
Thank you. Do I leave this here?
Our council will be contacting you about licensing opportunities for this thing.
Okay, great. Do I leave this here for the audience? I don't.
Take it
Just
away.
hang on for 1 second. Anybody want to make a motion?
Public
Well,
comment?
is there public comment?
Oh, yeah,
A public comment.
we do. Sorry. Would you like, anybody have public
Do
comment?
you want to,
Hi, my name is Cheryl Tamola. I live at 411 Linden Avenue. And
Could you use the mic? Thank you.
there we go. All righty. I gather that you folks like this. But the roof line, I mean, I thought that what you were all doing was preserving the neighborhood. And one of the things that you most focus on was the facade of the building. Well, this other roof coming up, looming up behind the existing building is extremely offensive to me. It's unattractive. It ruins the scale in my mind. I mean, I know on paper it may look good, and probably you folks have a better idea that it will look good or whatever, but we have other buildings in our community that do that, and it kind of greatly harms the attractiveness of the building itself. So I just wanted to voice that. This is a lot of impact on a small lot. Their garage is huge. It's not just a garage with a roof, it's a 2-story garage with dormers, and, you know, it's, that block of Midland has a nice feel to it, and it's not a gigantic feel. And this is going to make it seem gigantic, especially with the thing looming over the front of over the top of the building. I think it's extremely unattractive. And I think I'm happy these neighbors are here. I didn't quite understand the allusion to the fact as if our neighborhood was not already really very fine. But at any rate, I just needed to say that because I find it atrocious. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is my first time. My name's Mark D'Onofrio, and I just had a question about preserving the windows. How come, where does he wants to rip out the windows and put in these new energy-efficient windows without any consideration, or maybe I'm just not aware of the consideration you made for the windows?
I think from what I understand, and he can probably talk to it, is that this house has been changed throughout time with, it's got several generations of windows. Probably.
So it's not the original window.
So, and I understand they're not, probably very few or none.
Right.
So when you start talking like that, you know, you're not necessarily trying to really match the original with the original, because you don't have the original.
Actually, I had a question. Does this something have to be...
Speaking to the mic.
Does something have to be original to really be historic? What if it's not the original window, but it's very old? Why do we have to focus on something being like the very first entity or object in the building to be significant? I think that's more of like something just to consider for the rest of the meeting about alterations.
It's a very good point, in fact, because I don't think it should be, or usually in preservation, you can preserve, bring back to a particular time period, or you can restore in a kind of an evolutionary, historic layering.
Right, yes.
And I think different choices or different methods are appropriate for different projects. And I do think this building represents many different campaigns of windows that didn't really match. When I was walking around, I was like, whoa, what happened here? I couldn't tell. So I don't think it was a matter of leaving as is and keeping the character stronger. I don't think it takes away from nor adds to by, well, it's nice to have all the windows match, obviously, and they do seem to be a good choice, but I just don't think the windows in this building were such the face of the building as many other buildings are.
How old were the windows? Were they like 20 years old, or were
I
they
think it was a
from-
variety from my...
It was a variety.
I mean, the architecture would speak better, or owners, but I think it was a variety.
A variety of windows. Yeah, that's the only thing
That's
I
a good
wanted,
question.
just to take into consideration conservation
I agree.
as opposed to restoration. When I say like restoration, it's bringing something back to a previous state in history.
Speak in the mic, please.
Conservation is really just preserving what is there and preventing further deterioration versus restoration is bringing something back to the original state. And
No, I agree.
I'm taking too much time.
No,
sorry.
I agree, because the whole sustainability, you can sustain older buildings in a good way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate your comments. Anybody else? No? And my feeling is that the elevations probably show a little heavier roof line than is actually happening, and that may be what you're responding to. They're dormers, which are set back a bit. There's an existing kind of the area the larger addition part is going to be a two-story addition, which is in the eastern section. So you're still maintaining the hierarchy of the 4-square roof line, which I think is something that we're considering as something that really means this is what this house is. Once you start to step down from there, I think you get into a scale that I don't think it's a problem from my standpoint.
I also appreciate the comment, but I guess I feel when I'm in a neighborhood or on that street, there's such a variety. And I know that not so much variety of scale, as you're saying, but I felt when I'm looking at the plan now that the addition and garage, which is at the very rear of the property, fit in pretty well considering there's lots of things going on there. That was my overall feeling. And that like Cam was saying, the front-facing original roof line is the most, it stays with me as you're going along the street. So that spoke more to me than the additions. Even though I realize the height is different, it all balanced out for me.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel that in this particular case, the most significant facade is the front facade. And because the houses are fairly close to each other on either side, you really don't get the view shed of the rear addition. And so I think that it is enlarging the footprint of the house, definitely. But I think that still the historic aspect is, the main historic aspects of the house is preserved, or the most significant facades are preserved. I think, I understand as a neighbor why you would not like this, because it certainly is increasing the footprint of the house, but I think from the front, if it were on a corner, to me, it would be a different situation. But it's not on a corner. So I think it's overall a good addition.
I guess the only thing I could, just a suggestion, maybe, and I don't even know if you can do this, but on the east elevation, you've taken the 4-square hip and taken it all the way back, and then it becomes a gable on the rear. Is there a way to maintain the original hip outline with a jog in the roof line, just a slight jog? Because if you look at the front elevation, you've got, you're responding to that.
So if I take sort of this line here.
Right. And some kind of roof jog, and also the addition, is as high as the main roof, the original roof. And maybe, when you get into that little detail, maybe you could bring that roof line down just a little bit and not lose any usable space. But it just would be a detail that would say, here's the original house. It's a 4-square. Every other side responds to it, particularly the west side as well. And, that would be a framing detail, really.
Yeah, I'm sure a version like that probably ended up on the editing room floor.
But you know what I'm saying, right?
I do, sure,
Okay.
sure. I think that chimney running up the gable end is a nice thing. And, you know, it just looks good. It's just so stable. When I have a hip roof there, you know, then I'm going to have a chimney that's sort of hanging out here.
I'm not saying do
Right.
that at the end of the roof, but on the main roof, if you come off of your dormer, you know how the front roof comes right off of the dormer? I'm on the east elevation. The new dormer is the same slope as the main front roof.
So I was looking back here at the.
No, I wasn't talking about that.
And you're talking about up here.
I mean, right where your scale is, if you come back to the dormer, just slide it back to the dormer, right there. If you took that roof, which is the original roof, and just let it stay as that shape, and then the addition, step down just a hair and let it show itself as the.
You know, I mean, there's no question you're in the part that we struggled the most with, because we want to make a two-story addition.
Right.
And we are doing that largely, but then there's this little sort of third floor area popping out here that we're trying to tuck into the eaves and not see. But then I get into the back of the house and have, you know, all these practical issues raising their heads of, you know, really making the space up in that third floor habitable. The space that's right now is a little dicey.
I mean, I'm just saying that would make this thing for me if you were able to do it.
So a better drawing to look at, not the east elevation. The better is this rear elevation and right here. That dormer is the one that is the one that is problematic for you.
Right.
So is it a matter of sort of clipping that in some?
I think if you drop that roof line, it could be a foot, it could be 8 inches, it could be something that you can get a reveal line. I don't know, you know, you're tight for space as it is, but
so
it affects a lot of things if you do that.
If I take this line right here and I mirror it around that ridge, that's the roof line that's there.
Right.
And obviously what we're doing is sort of matching that plane and extending it out.
Right.
So you're looking for, so is there some sort of offset there to leave that hip?
Exactly.
Is the thing.
I mean, that would show Foursquare, here it is, new, old.
Right.
You know, the mass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know.
And looking at the rear elevation, I see the problems you've got doing that because it affects everything once you go back from there. But I don't know whether it's possible or not, but I'm just saying, you know, if you could do that, that'd be a wonderful thing. It's not, you know, it's no deal breaker. But
Yeah.
think about it.
Okay, I'll think about it.
You know, I think that's a good suggestion. On the other hand, I think that you'll generally be looking at it from the ground up. And so I don't think that this, you know, you won't be looking at it straight on as in the elevation. It'll really be, I think the roof will be much less obtrusive than.
I had the,
I mean, Cam, I like your suggestion. It can be worked out.
Well, you know, the only reason I started looking at that is because, you know, we are trying to keep the original massing as something that you can recognize.
Yeah.
And that's all there.
Yeah.
And this elevation is actually, as you're coming down the street, you're actually able to see this from further away, which means you see more of it than if you're standing in the front yard and looking at the house. So I'm just saying, you know, it's an opportunity
Well,
to maybe make that still show.
It would almost look more like the west elevation.
Yeah, the west has it still there. 'Cause there aren't any problems, you know.
well,
doesn't
the
have
west, you know, of course, again, is stepping away from you. And the main body of the, you know, I'm pointing at a thing that you're not looking at. You know, the main the main body of this thing is intact, is your point. And so,
You know, if you stand in front of the house, I was trying to look at the existing chimney,
yeah,
and I had a hard time even seeing that chimney. The sight that you get from the ground, which is what 99% of the people see, driving through a car or walking. And I walked through there many, many times.
well, there's
I had
that.
a hard time even to see that
Sure.
dormer, because
Sure.
I was trying to see,
Sure.
I was looking at your drawings and trying to relate to what was
Sure.
there existing.
Yeah.
And the way the slope of the roof comes in, when you're at the ground level,
Well,
it was
it's-
really difficult to see anything.
Well, it's always
So
the
I don't
question.
know, we're
it's always,
bantering about,
it's always the question in the great height battles that I fight. And I built this building in another town about a decade ago, and it was 16 inches too tall. And the zoning board thought I should rip it off, and then we appealed, and the court upheld their decision, and sure enough, we spent $100,000 and ripped the roof off. And the neighbor who had been in Florida for the year came back and heard I had lost, and he wanted to know when we were going to rip the roof off. Well, we already did, and it lowered it 16 inches for $100,000, and nobody knew. So, I mean, height issues are always that to me. I mean, there's these funny things up here out of our sight lines. You know, we spend a lot of time in my office, and I think we'll spend a lot of time on this project, on the eave line, how that's detailed, how that's put together, because that's what we care about, that's what we see, that's what's sort of emblematic of this building. You know, I thought we were doing, again, and I obviously, I think you've been responsive to it, this, you know, more than credible job of gently attaching onto this thing as best we can, cognizant that the front is the historic thing that we are probably most concerned about. But of course, that doesn't give us license to just, you know, build, you know, falling water on the back. So here it is. I mean, we'll help you any way we can, and we'll take your comments.
Well, I like everything else. I was saying, if we could get rid of that thing on the first floor, and just make that all the same, and drop that roof line a little bit, I think you got, you know, winner big time.
So what's the process?
We have a vote.
Give a vote?
It's a process.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion in favor of issuing a certificate of appropriateness.
second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all in favor, five ayes. Thank you.
Thank you so
Now,
much.
now, you know that you have to go through all the other things, building permits and grading and, okay. And end of the month, you get the okay from the commissioners, and then you can move forward.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right. That was Midland. All right, so we were going to switch over and go to 225 South Wayne Avenue. That's Harb 2011-13, addition of two-car garage. Anybody here for that? Is that this?
Yeah, it's a little bigger.
Okay, thank you. Could you all introduce yourselves and then walk us through it? And please remember to move that mic around with you, because it's,
Okay.
we don't have any wireless tonight.
My name's Rachel Garrity. This is my partner, Ryan Becker. And we would like to build a two-car garage in the back of our house. We're going to build it, we'd like to build it in the existing spot the old garage was originally in. It will also, it will help block out a little bit of the tennis courts for us and also the apartment complexes. We have a shed there right now, and we're just looking for a place to park our garage and some bikes. You can point to the neighboring house. So it's the front of the house. The driveway comes around in front of the house, and then we have the back of the house. So we're looking to build a two-car garage. And the reason we picked the plan that we did is because of the taller roof line, the taller attic.
We felt that the roof line of the garage, as well as the aesthetics of the garage, matched the house. I don't think you'll be able to see this from the front. This house sits on a big hill. You probably walked by it or seen it. The only place I think this would be visible from is, like I said, like she said, the public tennis courts behind, as well as the neighbor that lives to the rear of us. If you look at this picture here, this is where the garage would go, where the old garage used to be. You can see some of the rocks. Here's the close-up here, and essentially we just place it right where the old one used to be. And it'll also give us an ability to take some of the stuff that we have out back with the shed and put it in the garage and kind of clean up the backyard and the community there. That was our pretty simple pitch.
Can you point to where the car entrance to the garage is on the site plan? Like, how would you pull into that?
On the plan, it would be right here.
Okay. So the side that you see from the street, if you could see it from the street, would that have the door and the window elevation, or would it be something else?
It would be where the door is here, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we would have this flipped around, yep. And there's a lot of foliage and bushes and stuff here, so. And
really
like I said, we're on a hill, so you would
really
be able to
can't see that from the street. I mean,
It'd be impossible.
I tried. It must have been about, what do you get, about 10, 12-foot elevation before you even get to your house?
Yeah, easy. It's a nice uphill.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun shoveling and taking the ice off in the winter.
Now, the main house has a combination of materials on it. Can you describe that one elevation? I don't know if you have it up there.
Which one, in the front or
The
there's
rear.
There are
There's
three
one that-
sides that are the same, and the rear is
Yeah, there's a
vinyl
picture of the
siding.
rear and side that you had in our package, if you could pull that one up.
So this is the front.
they're
Right.
painted
It's
shingles.
this one?
Oh, that's the rear.
Yeah. Do you have that one with you as well?
No, but it's straight on.
You might have it back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, see if you could bring that one up.
Yeah.
So this is the side of the house as the driveway pulls around the front to the side, and then the back of the house. And this is the way it was when you purchased it, so it's been that way.
What's the rear material?
Just vinyl siding.
And then the side is a shingle.
Yeah, a shingle. I think asbestos shingle. I don't know.
So it looks like the siding of the garage is going to match the rear.
Yeah, it's old asbestos siding.
The shingle work? Is
Yeah.
asbestos?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
what it looks like.
So we, two small girls don't want to. No.
Do you
Yeah,
think-
we're just looking to match the back of the house. Like I said, that's when you're in the backyard. That's all you can see is this back of the house and a filled-in in-ground pool and tennis courts and lots of tennis balls from the yard and the apartments. It's not the prettiest backyard. We're trying to improve it as well as have a place, of course, to park our cars. So we would, in fact, be blocking a little bit of our view of the apartment complex and the corner there, the tennis court.
Well, the funny thing is you have actually two separate facades. One is your classic Victorian
Yes.
shingle style, which is probably what those asbestos shingles are covering, I don't know. But then you go to the back, it's like a totally different house.
Yeah.
And the garage that you're proposing
It's like
actually
that.
looks like the back of the house.
Right, which is where it's going to be.
Yeah.
You can't see the sides of the house when you're standing at the back in the backyard.
Well, your whole house seems to be slanted from the street. If you're going on
Probably is
South
after all these
Wayne,
years.
it's up on the hill, but
Yeah.
then it's slanted.
It's the street that's slanted.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, it could be that.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know,
like-
but
It is
it's
an
not
uphill-
parallel
it is
to
an
the
uphill
street. Yeah.
Looks nicer from the front.
Anything to do?
The only comment I have, I understand, is this a prefab garage? Or is it, it is,
Yes. Well, not prefab. But it's
but
pre-
is it a kit or something, or?
No.
These are drawings you buy.
Right.
We
in
just
a-
got the
in a
drawings
catalog.
off the internet, but we're going to build it from scratch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because my only comment, and I know that you won't be seeing it from the street or really, and maybe it's just a suggestion, but is the garage doorway. It just seems, well, it's not at all in keeping with the historic quality of the house, but I realize that that a lot of it has been changed, the asbestos shingles. And the back of the house has completely been covered up. But if there were some way just to take that and make it into either two doors or a little bit more, just to change, to make the elements a little bit more in keeping with the rest of the house, I think that might be an improvement to the garage.
Yeah, that's, frankly, that's very doable. I think basically why we're here right now is to see if it's feasible to actually let us put the two-car garage there. And we do want to accommodate the board, as opposed to the aesthetics of it. So if some alterations need to be made on the building permits to aesthetically give you what you need, we're willing to accommodate that.
What Andrea was saying is not two separate doors, the two doors that are on a single.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Double.
Yeah, obviously, the garage doors that are shown in the drawing are not, frankly, no, that's not what we want. But, it was just to establish the size of the building, the roof lines and things like that. Those doors, frankly, I wouldn't want those on my garage either. So, I mean, yeah, there'll be something a little more pleasing than that, yes.
I mean, I don't think it'll be at all visible from any place except
Can't see
the
it.
back of your house, really.
Yeah. To check on if the babysitter's at the house still when I'm walking up from work, I have to almost go through to the last tennis courts to be able to see if there's a car there.
Yeah.
No?
I mean, it's not, you can't see it from the street. I mean, if I was doing this, I'd probably have open rafter tails and, match all that stuff, but that's going to be costly to do,
And again, you're really matching the back of the house
That's
rather
the-
than anything
That's the
else.
problem. If you do something like the front of the house, it just doesn't, if you're standing in the backyard, literally all you can see is the back of the house. You can't see any angle of the side of the house.
How do you want to deal with the garage doors? You want to have that?
Yeah.
I think
Maybe if they could send us a picture of what you're going to be putting in.
Well, frankly, I think being the size of the garage, it's less than 500 square feet. And, you know, if the board would like to match the finish on the other side of the house, I don't think it would be that costly. I think if that would please the board, we could do that. That's not that much more of an expense. However, again, you can't see the garage from the road, or frankly, I don't know if anybody can see it, but, you know, we're just here to propose the building of it, as opposed to, and we want to give you what you want aesthetically. So,
What are your plans for the house itself?
I'd like to take out the pool that's back there. You can see just the corner of it in a picture. There's a filled-in pool, I don't know if you
Used to
can
be
see
there.
it. I don't know when it was filled in, apparently at some point when they built the tennis courts.
I don't think I have that picture.
I'll love the front of the house, the side of the house, but the backyard is what we're going to work on next, but
Well,
like I said,
I guess what I'm getting at is if you continue to work on this house and you look at the back of your house and you decide to take the vinyl off because, you know, the rest of the house is not that at all, and you try to bring this back to a little bit more what used to be there, would that be something you'd consider? And we're not talking about doing the house now, but I'm just saying if in the kind of the grand scheme of things, if that's what you're thinking about doing, then the garage should really talk to the original house and not what you're going to tear apart.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, at this point, I'm not really considering that.
Okay.
It's more in the line of taking the pool out, maybe adding a deck, that type of thing, than
Okay.
structurally changing the back. If you like, we could pick out what the proposal for the garage doors are and get that to you.
I think we, you know, not because you can see it from the street, but it's a neighbor thing. Like the neighbors can see that, and maybe that's
No.
something that we should just say, if we could get a look
No
at
one
that.
can see it.
No?
Right now, the neighbors to
They've got a
the
huge...
south of us are below us, and more to the front. And there's no neighbors other than,
There's a big stone carriage house in the back of us that blocks any view of the garage or apartments, the house that's on Luella.
I thought we had photos of that.
Yeah, we don't,
That's the house on the side of the
I see.
driveway.
yeah, that's
so this is our neighbor to the south of us here. I'm pointing
below
to.
us,
Below us, so they,
the new house.
Oh, that's right, that one's
Yeah.
down below.
And then
Okay.
this used to be apparently the old chicken coop that's within like
Next to the
20 yards of our house.
and they back up onto the tennis courts and don't have windows on that side, so they wouldn't be able to see our garage either.
Okay.
Yeah, the only buildings you can see in the back there are the two apartment complexes, the one on the corner of Luella and right in between the middle school and our property.
Yeah, we could definitely do something with the front
Yeah.
there.
Thinking. Okay. All right, anybody? Anything else? Public
I just
comment.
have one
No?
comment, which is, I think that I think that what I am struggling with, but I'm not really struggling with it, is that, you know, for example, in the garage that we just looked at, that one is very visible from the street, and therefore we were very picky about, or I don't know if that's the right word, but we wanted to be very detailed about, you know, what the siding was, what the garage door looked like, what the dormers were like, and so forth. And the reason we felt like that is because it is so visible, whereas the garage that you're putting on, if you were to put that garage in the previous in the previous lot of the house, I think I would have a problem with it. But because it's not visible from any area and any neighbors, and even from the street, you really can't see it. Even though the materials and the matching of the garage to the original house is not really very strong, it doesn't, I think it meets the criteria of the guidelines. I just wanted to clarify that. You know, just to say that not every garage is equal, not every project is equal in terms of what is put on the property. It really has to do with site, and it has to do with each individual house.
Yeah. I think I agree. You're out of sight, so the rules aren't as stringent, correct? Would you like to make a motion? No, we have to have public comment. Anybody? No public comment? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of a certificate of approval.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, 5 ayes.
Thank you.
Okay, this is, have you gone to anybody else yet? Zoning or anything?
No.
Step one.
Okay. Probably zoning is,
Permit applications and the grading permits.
all right, so you've gone to zoning? The zoning,
Applications, I should say.
okay. The zoning should be first, and then after that, you go from there. But, you know, as we stated earlier, the commissioners will have their meeting at the end of the month and bring this one up, agree or not agree, and then that's all we've done. And then you have to go through all the other processes too.
Okay.
So.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Are there some zoning issues with this? Because we are within the
Well, it depends on your classification and your setbacks. I don't know, you'd have,
Okay.
you have to go
I've
check
already
on
done
that.
that homework, and
Okay.
we're within those limits and all this, so.
Okay, well, your application would go in to them, and they would tell you right away if it's a
Right.
problem. So if you've done that,
So
you're,
we intend to proceed with permitting because we're within the guidelines as
Okay.
far as the time.
all right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Let's see. Next up is Harb 2011-14, 427 Midland Avenue, removal and replacement of columns to front porch.
My name is Susan Curtin. My name is Susan Curtin, and I grew up in this house. My grandfather bought this house before he was married, and in the mid-20s, I believe, and there's a lot of family history in this house. My mother was born there. She lived there her whole life, and there have been many good and bad decisions made for this house, and it is our intention at this point to try to bring the house back to an original state that is closer to what it was like originally, and to honor that, so that the next family that moves in can enjoy it the way my family did. We have many family pictures that show the column. One of the things that we did was we drove around Wayne and looked at all the different columns. You know, I was very aware growing up here that this style of house is in a number of different pockets in the community of Wayne. And so we looked at all the columns, and as far as we could see, this was the only column like this. It's a little bit unusual.
Could you put this picture up on their plan, on top of your plan? This is the house, correct?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. And that's the before?
Yeah, that's the before.
Okay. So if you could just point to the columns that we're talking about in that picture and find, are you on there? Yeah.
You want
Okay.
to introduce yourself?
Good.
My name's Joe Curtin. I'm Susan's husband, and
You can bend that as far over as it'll go if you want.
the reason I'm speaking is my occupation is in contracting, and I'm currently employed with Haverford College doing project management work. And I've been working on this winter, and it started as a siding project, which when we came in to do it, the contractor came here and was told he didn't need a permit for the siding. But when we started to look, I knew there was a problem on this front. If you look at this existing picture, there's a missing stone. And it's tough to see in that detail, but there's a crack running from the left column all the way down to the ground. And it was caused, two things were stressing it. One I knew about. The second was a much worse surprise than I thought it was. And the first was that the roots of this spruce had heaved the front walk about 3 inches and was pressing against this wall and causing stresses on it. In addition to that, when we actually started the work, when I discovered how bad it was, the left corner of the house was down 3 inches from what I can assume was its original position. And that's due to the fact that, as I said, the roots, and that is the column that came out of, or off of that left-hand side. That's the bottom of the column. That cavity in that column is 10 inches deep. I could stick a square up there 10 inches before I hit anything solid. After taking it apart, I was amazed that I hadn't gotten much more serious settling. Here's a close-up of the wall and another column. The columns immediately to the left and right of the porch are a little under 5 feet tall, or 5 feet to the top of, or to the bottom of the capitol. The other ones are 3 foot to the bottom of the capitol. This is the one off the right corner, and that is a previous repair that had been done. I don't know when, but it was just some structural 2x8. Somebody had cut out the rot and put in a structural 2x8 to cover it up. Most of that was hidden by trim. And it made me wonder if the trim was original at the base of the column. This trim, I know, was not original, but we do have some pictures going back to 1937 that show a similar trim. The columns, the original columns are white oak, old growth white oak.
Solid as well?
Solid, yep. And, I couldn't get them if I wanted to. And what we're proposing, after looking at our options, what I'm proposing to do is cut the capitol off of the existing post. I've researched what would be the best material to replace it with. The two candidates that come out strongest are just a solid piece of Douglas fir or a glue lamb column cut. It would have to be custom cut with the octagon shape. So that's where I'm going to. I have mainly because I can't get anybody to give me a rating guarantee weight-wise on a solid piece of Douglas fir. I think it would probably work, but I think the glue lamb column would work better.
Why don't you just go in with like a steel post and fabricate a surround?
I thought about that too, but I just thought I could make it look more like the original if I did it this way, rather than a box column. I did think of that.
Well, no, you could still put in the angles and everything. That's what I'm talking about. And once you paint it, no one would ever know.
It's an option I considered.
And it's easier.
It would be easier. Yeah, I agree with you.
You know what else you might, how far up does, you say it's 10 inches on the inside?
Yeah, the worst one is to about 10 inches. There's a lot of checking on that column. And if you look at, especially this picture, you see that there's bug damage in there too. So, I could stick my square up there 10 inches, but I have no idea how far bugs went up in there. And I'm just a little nervous about, not replacing it all, to be honest.
Have you done any cores?
No. no, not any further up, no.
I mean, I understand what you're proposing. I'm just wondering, you've got so much material that's still original that's not made anymore. That I'm wondering if there's some way, since it did have a base on it, is there some way to cut the offending part off and just replace the lower part?
I don't have a problem with doing that.
And make it, a base, a bigger,
Right.
use that profile of the base.
I have no problem doing that. It'd probably be simpler than what we're proposing. The one change in terms of the design that I'd like to do is, in the detail, putting the new post on a standoff and finishing it with AZACs and putting a little bit of a drip kerf into the bottom of the column so that it sheds water instead of sucks it up. Or wrapping it again in trim, because other than a synthetic product, I don't know of anything currently available that's going to, not wick up water as well as this oak did.
I'm very familiar with this problem.
Yeah, I
I've
bet.
struggled with this for years. I
Yeah.
know where you're coming from with this.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I don't think you have to be as drastic as you're being, and maybe we can just all solve it in the bottom. I mean, your efforts are commendable, because, this is a big issue and an expensive replacement if you were to try to make this somehow, the whole
Right.
thing.
I agree.
So I'm just saying, if we can get 10 inches off of the bottom of this, and you could core a couple of sections and just find out if you've got some, good, and I'm
Good
talking,
wood up.
you're
I
talking about a
think I
quarter-inch
do.
core. Nothing, it's nothing.
There's only the one short column worries me. The other three look fine.
Okay.
But this one short one has a lot of splitting in the paint. You can see it. It sounds solid, but
Right.
the coring's probably a good idea.
I would do that, and then you definitely need to stand up, to stand off, but, when you do your trim, just bring it down a quarter-inch off of whatever, so there's still that airspace.
Yeah, so that there's a.
But you hide it all. But somehow, if you could just replace that last section,
But you're saving me money. You can.
I would love to see that.
This suggestion doesn't bother me.
and then, were these set in concrete in the?
No, they were just set
They were
on the
sitting-
stone. And that's another reason I want to they're right on the stone. I want to drill for a
Yeah.
rod in the standoff that, I have to stick it up.
Yeah, well, that's going to be
epoxy
a
and
code
then
thing you're going to
stick
have
it
to do,
down.
actually.
Right.
So, and there's 4 columns involved, 2 long, 2 short? Is that-
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And you've done only this exploratory, they're down so you can look at them, there's no
Yeah.
cutting yet? So
No, I haven't cut off anything yet.
Okay, good. So in the end, we're going to see this picture again someday, right?
Yes, with cedar siding, cedar shake, and new columns and paint.
And just looking forward, is this wall in enough
The wall
pieces
is
that you
actually,
can put it back together fine, it's on the problem?
yeah, the wall has been repaired.
Okay.
That's the before and after of the wall.
Okay. Good.
So regardless of which method you end up doing, the column itself will end up looking like the original.
Yeah, it'll be that same octagon, which happens to be an imperfect octagon, but yeah, it'll be the same. And I'll try, to use an epoxy substance to make the joint as invisible as I can.
You could cut off your bottom piece and essentially dowel the bottom to the top with
Yeah.
like a 2-inch piece of steel. Just drill it and epoxy that in. In fact, that's a perfect example for using epoxy, because epoxy is wonderful in a compressive type situation.
Right, right.
And that's exactly what you want.
Okay.
And then you can and believe it or not, what works unbelievably well on those seams that you're trying to cover,
Yeah.
Bondo.
Yeah,
It doesn't shrink, it doesn't crack, it stays forever.
I use Bondo sometimes. I have another product I like better, to be honest with you, but it's
You getting paid for that?
pardon?
Yeah, I do, as a matter of fact.
geez, I can't, Flex Tech. You ever hear of Flex Tech? It's an epoxy. It comes in a tube with a, a mixing nozzle. But I found it, it's great.
Oh, well, almost any epoxy outdoes.
Yeah.
But it's cheaper, that's the only thing.
What I've found with it, this white oak probably wouldn't be a problem, but expansion and contraction, I've seen Bondo loosen over time.
Boy.
Yeah, but this stuff, I've used it extensively at school where I do a lot of historical restoration there because we have a lot of buildings built in the same era, and I've been really happy with it.
Well, I'd say for the purposes of our review, we are happy to see you going through the effort to restore this. And our suggestions are just, if they're suggestions, and if we can keep the original, as much of the original as possible, that's our goal.
I appreciate that.
Because this is a piece of millwork that we cannot create today.
No.
So it's very important that whatever we can do, even if I would say you've got a base that looks like it might be originally 8 inches or something like that, even if that base has to be 10 or 12 inches
right,
to take care of this problem, you're still in the spirit of what we're trying to do, and you're keeping the majority of the column. You know what I mean?
Do you think those columns were originally just varnished?
I have no idea. Judging just from what I know from being in this business, that they painted most of the time in Victorian, style houses in that era. They mostly painted. So, but then we have buildings that most of the time when I find stained wood, it's interior, like beautiful stairwells and entryways. The door and the wainscot as you go in the vestibule of this house is all beautiful quarter sawn oak with a really dark stain on it. But outside, I've found no evidence that there was original stain.
Well, oak would have turned black after somebody not varnishing it or something.
Yeah, outside.
Any public comment? Okay.
Motion to approve a certificate of appropriateness?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5 ayes.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Ray, what does he have to do permit-wise? He's already in process? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Harb 2011-12, 40 Loyola Court, demolish existing garage and build 12 two-car garages and trash room to be attached to existing building and restore existing mansion.
How is everyone tonight? Well, we've gone back. We hope we've answered your questions and taken the comments into consideration and produced some new options for you all to consider. Let me flip that over. Just as a quick refresher, we are, as you previously stated, proposing to construct 12 garages next to the mansion on Loyola Court, as well as to do some refinishing, some restoration to the mansion itself. But we're really here tonight for the garages, as we discussed last month. One of the things that the board asked us to consider were some different options, some different siting of the garage, and we've done that. We've actually produced 3 separate iterations of the garage. I think they speak to the comments we received. Hopefully, we can work with those and move forward. What we're showing right now on the screen was an issue that was brought up before we unfold the plans. The board wanted to see where the garage connected to the mansion and wanted to see some side elevations. There's actually a better shot of that side elevation without looking at the garage itself, but let's look at this this color rendering first, and then we can kind of back out and look at the whole picture. And this is drawn on just one of the options for the garage itself. As we get into the presentation, you'll see the attachment itself remains relatively consistent. It's the garage and the roofing that will change. So speaking specifically to the connection to the mansion, this elevation will get us rolling, I guess, and start discussion. Looking at the east side, which we did not have last time, this is what you would see. Obviously, you don't see the connection there, and as I said, you'll see it later on different pages. But that would be the side elevation looking directly at the east side of the mansion. As you'll notice here on the bottom picture, the connection sits below the top of the garage, and this is coming from the north at the top. That speaks to the elevation change from the top of the mansion down to the bottom. Again, on some sheets we'll see a little bit later, actually I'll unfold them now, you'll see the difference in height and how that addresses. But again, the garage itself will sit below the windows, won't have any impact on that. Again, just for perspective, this would be just a sketch plan showing the location of the garages and how they'd be accessed. But the importance of this, as we'll see, we've proposed a different option for access into the garages. This is just an elevation or a sketch, but we can see on this sheet that one of the options will be to bring in cars from a different direction. That's going to give a different visual for the last two garage bays. Again, one of the issues that was raised at the last month's hearing was the perception that it just looked like a wall of doors. This is going to change that perception, and again, it's just another option to present.
Are these labeled A, B, C, or anything like that?
They are. These are all that were the plans that were submitted with the packet. They are.
I think, can we start doing that just so we can refer to them
Sure,
easier?
sure.
So maybe the first one that you, and that's the existing demo, right?
The existing conditions and demolition plan. This is all one set, an attached set of sheets, 5 sheets. So we can call this maybe Exhibit 1, and then 1A. One B would just show the access with all 12 garages taking it straight on. One C is
The aerial.
a plan of the garages shown over the existing conditions in a photo over an aerial, so you can see how that would match to the existing mansion.
Excuse me, Bill. What you call 1B is basically your original proposal.
Yes. One D shows access differently into the last 2 garages. And 1E shows the underground garage. With respect to the underground garage, we did meet with Township staff. We've included this sheet because it's an option we are willing to consider, but we will need a determination from Township staff as to whether or not it will require zoning relief. So we've included this. We are considering it. To the extent that it does not require zoning relief, we will seriously consider it as an option.
You don't have a an elevation of that, do you?
Of the underground?
Yeah, you're just showing the plan view.
Yes.
How much would it be above ground?
It would not extend above ground. It would be completely
Flat.
below grade, yeah. The issue with the underground garage, and if you turn to sheet 1E, you'll notice that the front yard setback, there is a designation right here with the arrow. You can see that the garage does extend beyond that a significant amount. I mean, it's all relative, but it's certainly a significant encroachment, and encroaches beyond even the existing garage, and this would be the tightest we could make it. That's what we were asked to draw, and that's what we drew, and that's what we met with Township staff to discuss. So essentially, we would need a determination that that would not require variance relief. And that's something that, if it is determined that it would require such relief, that we would not consider.
Is that only variance, or is it special exception, or did you guys get into all that?
We got into it. Encroaching into a setback would be a variance request.
Okay.
So, again, this is still a by right application, would not require anything beyond that. The issue that would drive us to zoning would be the encroachment itself.
Okay. I'm sorry. I just...
Sure, no, absolutely. So this next set we'll call. Do the existing.
No, it should say existing. That's it. That shows the connection.
Okay, we'll label the existing conditions plan, the existing mansion, as Exhibit 2. And this plan we've drawn for the purpose of showing, at the board's request, the connection to the side of the mansion. And that's, again, an east side elevation and the limit of that connection with respect to the existing windows. As you can see in this top picture, the connection itself will sit below the windows, won't have any impact there. And again, this is an important elevation to see the actual elevation change as you move from front to back and from back to front in the mansion. Anything else you want to show on this?
Yeah, this is just for information.
Yeah. The second sheet in Exhibit 2 is merely for informational purposes. It's just showing some different elevations, which you are all familiar with. Gives us a north rear and a west side. No impact here. What we'll call Exhibit 3 will be the traditional mansard roof options. 3A begins to get into some of the deviations we've made from our previous application. Looking to the bottom of this plan, you can see we've removed the top level of the garage over the first bay. Does a couple of things. Opens up eye line from that first window, as well as creating a different eye line from the street and from surrounding properties, so it's not a straight block. We've also raised from our previous application, raised the middle section of the roof. Again, all for aesthetic, for visuals. You can see sits up just slightly. From the south, we have a 19-foot, 6-inch elevation to the top of the center portion of the roof. On sheet 3B, again, this would be, again, more for informational purposes, but it still shows us that north elevation, which shows us at 17 feet, 2 inches to the top of the center portion of the roof. For the garage, again, you can see the impact of dropping the roof over that first stall. Sheet 3C does not drop the roof over the first stall. Does raise the middle section, but does not drop the first stall. We prefer the drop in elevation, the drop in the first stall roof there, but again, wanted to present the option to the board as more similar to our first application, but again, with the raised center portion of the roof. This also shows a separate option for the side entrance to the garage, if you look at the bottom portion. And these are all interchangeable options. So should the board prefer the side entrance to the garage with the lowered first section of the roof, that's feasible and very possible. This, again, would be back to the separate access. 2 bays of the garage would take a separate access to their garage, while the remaining 5 on either side would take the access that's previously been presented. This essentially creates a different view line for the side of the building and for each end. Isn't there, gotcha. At the top, in the east elevation, you can see the difference in view for the garages that point out to the east. We'll flip back. To the first sheet on Exhibit 3. Again, the east side elevation, that's just with a couple of windows. That would be the mansard roof option. The last option, as it may be, which we'll call Exhibit 4, is the ornamental metal hip roof option. Again, taking some of the comments that we heard at the last meeting, was to consider some different materials, some different pitches. We've done that. We have some pictures that we'll flip through here in a minute. We drove through the neighborhoods, took a look at some other metal roofs that are out there. We believe this is consistent with what we saw and consistent with what we discussed at the last meeting. Again, same options as the previous. We've lowered the first bay to remove the roof over that bay. You can see the elevation for the metal roof would be 24 feet and 10 inches. This east elevation on the first sheet shows no entrance to the garage from the side. We'll see that elevation on a separate sheet, but again, more for reference. Sheet 4B, again for the metal roof, is just showing us the north elevation and the west elevation. Most pertinent would be the north elevation, showing 22 feet 6 inches to the top, again, with no roof over the first bay. The last sheet, sheet 4C, in this packet will show us an east elevation with the metal roof with garage entrances pointing to the east. We'll also show the the lowered roof for the first bay. And the bottom shows the window as opposed to the garage looking from the south front. The last sheet shows us our north rear elevation, again with the entrance from the east, so we see a window to the north rear. As I had just discussed, we did get some pictures of some neighboring properties with the metal roof, more for comparison purposes to materials and look, but as you can see on St. David's, it's 2 homes on St. David's, a couple of different photos from each home, metal roof on the front. We have Orchard and St. David's, again a metal roof, South Wayne with a metal roof. Where's that picture of the original house? There it is. For reference purposes, the original house north side elevation, you can see, also had a metal roof, which is consistent. With us this evening, we've brought many samples for you to consider. What we have off to the side is a large window from Pella. So we walked Pella through the property and essentially asked them to match what is there with their best window. And what they did was produce essentially this window, but they've matched the edges of the existing window. So it'll be virtually identical in look, but will be substantially different in performance. This is for the house. When we were here last time, we were asked to bring back, I know this is outside the scope of our application for this board, but out of an abundance of caution, we wanted to bring everything we could bring to show the board and to show the public essentially what we're trying to do. The garage windows would match as well the windows in the house. But these were modeled off of the existing windows in the house. Cass, come over to the microphone now.
This is Pella's Architectural Series True Divided Light. The top sash is their standard 4-light sash with the narrow muttons, very traditional. And what they did was take the bottom sash, and they made this specially for this meeting, to show a 2-inch mutton bar that matches identically to the muttons that are on the existing house. And if you turn it around, this is actually an all aluminum clad window, but it looks, you can't tell that it's not wood, and then the inside is all wood and has the True Divided Light mutton on the bottom sash. So this is strictly a sample. The actual window will be the full size, match exactly to the windows that are in the house. They'll be the same scale, same size, and both the top and bottom sashes will match.
I'm looking at the pictures of the existing building. I can't find a window that looks like that.
No, what he's saying is the top sash is a normal Architect Series sash, I think. The lower one is what they're proposing.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be a 2/2.
Oh, okay, okay.
But that's just for comparison, I think.
Yeah, they couldn't.
Right.
Right, okay.
So the lower sash, I think they have the bead on the inside as well in the mansion, but that's the same proportions.
Well, the mansion,
The lower one.
they actually, along the side jambs, at the exterior, they put some, looks like aluminum facing. They were probably having some problems before. So what you really have is, I don't know what you have along the jambs for trim, because there's just a flat piece of aluminum. It's hard to see on the pictures, but if you actually go to the site, it was some remodeling that somebody did it in the past to probably help with rot or
One of the
weather
thing-
stripping, who knows?
We have done an extensive inspection of the existing mansion, every unit, all the windows, and from a distance, when you're on Lancaster Avenue looking up at the building, the limestone surrounds that surround the window look like gray. They've actually been painted. There is true limestone, Indiana limestone, behind that. So what we would do is remove the paint and restore it to its original limestone. The windows, when we're done, you won't be able to tell that we replaced the windows with brand-new energy-efficient, low-E glass, true divided light windows. I mean, they will match perfectly.
Were there some French door windows on the middle section, I believe, that were
Well,
extremely...
no, actually, and I'll be happy to walk everybody through. If you look at the front and back, the south and the north, those windows are what they call cottage windows. The lower sash goes all the way to the floor, and it wasn't a door. You actually lift the sash up and walk through the window to get to the outside. Pella, and we don't recommend doing that. We recommend putting in a full operable window that will look like the window had the mutton bars, so from the outside, but it will actually operate and meet code requirements for ingress and egress. But it will look from the street as if it's the same window. Now, on the sides, on the side porches, very fascinating element, and there's actually 4 of these doors. And it looks like a regular window. It's not a cottage window. It looks like a regular height window. It starts about 28 inches above the floor. But below it is a wainscot panel that is split in 2. So you lift the window and then open the panel.
Interesting.
Okay? We haven't gotten that far along with those 4 windows because we're still in this process. But Pella is trying to see if they can kind of marry their window to that element. But there's only 4 of those in the whole house. So, but it's kind of a neat, it's a neat feature, I must admit. But
Well, the ones that have the cottage style, I think the lower sash also, doesn't that disappear into the ceiling? I mean, it goes into the header and disappears. It's like are you familiar with, I mean, I'm from the South, they used to call them Jefferson windows.
yes.
Where you actually, they'd all stack and disappear into the head of the window. They go away completely. But there was a pocket up above the window.
I'm not aware. We've looked at physically every window inside and outside, and I'm not familiar with
Okay.
that. Now on there's 38 dormers in the attic and on the third floor.
The
reason I know is
tops?
because we have analyzed the trim and how to match it and replace it perfectly for those 38 windows. And they all have, if you look at the picture, it looks like a rounded window, but the windows, it's kind of interesting the way they made that. It looks round, the glass is round, but it's a square sash. And Pella said, this is great, we can match this perfectly. So we've...
Is that also the tower window as well?
Well, the tower window, we haven't been able to get, there's no access to the tower.
Okay.
There's 4 windows in the tower. So we believe they don't operate because there is actually, there's no way to access that from inside the building. There's no steps, it's just sealed. The other thing that we brought is the Hatteras shingle that's made by Certainteed. It's a 40-year warranty shingle, and it is designed with the shadow line, so from at that height, it looks like slate. But it's a proven product, and it will allow the future owners and homeowner association to maintain the roof. One of the other things we found, in order to stop the leaks, they actually sprayed the slate with its paint. The whole slate roof is painted. You can't tell that from the ground, but it's...
Is that the same
Oh, it could be one of those polymeric coatings that they spray.
I don't know
on,
what
too.
they do.
That's probably what it is, yeah. It's a fast fix.
Yeah,
that
but
the
it was
same
actually
exposure?
spray painted. Pardon me?
Is that the same exposure that the slate shows? The module, the sizing,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. It's a very, the problem with slate today is it's very hard to find anybody that'll do it, and it's a maintenance nightmare, even if on newly installed slate. So we wanted to maintain the aesthetics, and this will do that. We also have, we've given you samples of the aluminum standing seam roof material that we propose, and we've also given you samples of the garage doors with the rounded windows that would match the existing building. So what we tried to do was incorporate all the new elements for the garage in keeping with the architecture of the existing building.
So I think I'm glad Kaz touched on the garage door. I think that the detail of the door is important based on some of the concerns we saw at the last meeting about a self-storage facility. Although completely off the mark, I think it's important for the board to understand exactly what we're proposing with respect to this installation. It's a garage door with significant detail below either a pitched hip metal roof or a mansard roof. So taken in context, I'd say it's probably as far as you could possibly get from a self-storage facility. So I think that probably concludes our presentation. We certainly don't want to rehash anything we went over last month. We've heard all that. So we hope that these options have given the board something more to think about. We think we've certainly taken to heart neighbors' concerns. We've explored the underground garage. We've explored different options for sight lines, for materials. We've brought with us pretty much everything we could imagine to bring to show the board and the neighbors what we're proposing. this is a good project on a good piece of property, and we're doing a good job here. We hope we can stay focused on that. We'll leave all this up. I'm sure we'll be back.
Don't go anywhere. Okay.
I'm just going to sit down. I'm sure this is the man you're going to be looking for.
I'll start with something if you, or do you have anything you want to add?
No, I was all set to do a presentation, but they covered all the material for me.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for addressing a lot of the things we asked for. I mean, having the total elevations of the mansion, out there for us and for everyone to look at was not a yawning thing to do. It was a lot of work to do that, and we really appreciate that. It's the only way to really look at everything, I think, effectively. And also, thank you for the other options that we all talked about. The one that I'm really interested in talking about from my end is the underground option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the only thing that struck me with that one that I didn't like was the entryway, which faces right at the curve of the Luella Court, which is kind of the court. So you have this kind of, gaping hole back at the community again. And I didn't know whether you had looked at trying to enter it on the south side, southeast corner, kind of right there in front of the commercial area.
Well, we put it on the east side because twofold. Number one is that we could make the garage smaller because if we come in at the end, we would be able to enter right at the drive aisle. If we came in on either the north or the south side, that we would be eliminating parking spaces and thus making the garage bigger to make up those parking spaces. The second thing is that is, I believe, one of the lowest areas of Luella Court. It actually goes high, then down, and then comes back up again. So it seemed to be a logical place to enter the garage, which would decrease the slope of the ramp going into the garage itself.
Well, one of the contours I was looking at, I forget which drawing, I guess it's the drawing of that site plan. It looked like you were at kind of the same elevation where I was looking, because that 9-foot line runs around, and it looks like you could probably get something that's not a direct entry, but maybe a side entry or a parallel to the road entry. I know when you start doing turns and everything else, you start eating up real estate. But I think two questions was. One was whether we could look at that as an entry point, is to try to do it from that south end. And the second one was, do you know what can grow on top of this structure once it's covered with?
Well, the ones we've done in the past, we use a lightweight soil that is anywhere from 12 to 18 inches thick. And that sits on top of a drainage plane, which is at the roof of the garage. You can grow grass on it. You can grow very small bushes on it. You certainly can't grow trees on it. But we could, obviously, there would be the whole perimeter where the garage doesn't exist that we could plant with, with trees. I think the real issue with the underground garage is whether it would require a zoning variance.
Right. Well, I mean, that's another kind of a battle. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but I think when you look at this site, Luella Court there's a character-defining, feel to it now that used to be a lot bigger, and this is it. This is all we have left. There's an open space, there's a mansion, there's a circular drive and smaller R4 residences around it, and that's the only thing that's left of Luella.
Well, it's not really open space, it's a private yard.
But it's open to a view shed, is what I'm saying. So I think when we start talking about filling this last little piece of this mansion with something above ground, I'm glad that we went and looked at different options of heights and all that, but I think the footprint is the problem, with me anyhow, is that it's really just filling the site, which, I know by zoning, you have right to do that, because it's within all the zoning setbacks, and you've got your coverage, and all those things are calculated out, and everything's fine. But from our standpoint, when we start looking at scale and mass and character-defining issues, it really takes this, it diminishes this thing quite a bit. And it's not that this isn't a nice-looking garage, and you've done everything in the world. You've done all sorts of things that garages don't usually have. I mean, it's, it's not that. It's just the fact that it's there. It could be cinder block, it could be made out of sand, it could be made out of anything, but it's still this big thing that covers the site. And to me, that destroys the character-defining value of this court.
Well, along those lines, and I know we asked this last time, but any further consideration to doing one-car garages and cutting this thing in half?
Kaz did consider it, and we talked about it. Unfortunately, George, it doesn't work for this market, for this price point. The most aggressive option we did consider was the underground garage, and we've considered it very seriously. I mean, we've drawn the plans, and we've spoken to Township staff about it. I've had some communication with the solicitor on this point. All I can say is it's going to be a determination, and if it pushes us back to zoning, it's not an option. So that's all I can say.
I don't mean to be questioning, but when you say it's not an option,
We won't pursue it.
okay, I'm hearing what you're saying, but it could be pursued if others could pursue it. It's a
Sure,
it's a
we don't
legitimate,
we
but
don't
you
believe it
choose that.
meets the requirements for a variance.
I mean, the argument, and we shouldn't be talking about zoning, but, it's, and I guess I can't go there.
Right. I'm telling the board that only out of full disclosure. We didn't want to wheel this option out and say, this is a perfect option, and we're going to go this way. If it was a perfect option, it would work for us, and we would absolutely consider it. It's not perfect. It is a flawed option, which I wanted to make clear that I showed the board and everybody else here. It encroaches into a setback. Beyond that, that's something we can discuss with the solicitor. If he wants to make a determination to the contrary and allow us to pursue that option further, we're happy to do that.
I guess from our perspective, there's a question, if you do the underground garage, whether you even need a certificate of appropriateness.
We do not.
You might not?
Right.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So,
And the issue that we've grappled with amongst this board
right.
is when some other board makes a determination that impacts a proper, somebody's doing an addition, putting up a building, that really impacts the historical character of the design, which we might approve.
Mm-hmm.
That's never been settled. And that's an issue that we've been grappling with.
Sure.
That our determination should be taken into consideration in other boards. Their decision is still their decision, but.
Right.
I had a discussion with Matt Bauman about process, because like you say, we have this all the time, where it's who do you go first? Who goes first? They don't have a written out, here's your flow chart. Because what they usually, and I think they're going to try to do something a little better, but what they usually do is say the most restrictive thing is you go to that first, and then you work your way the other way. You've done a lot of homework upside down, inside out on this thing, and you know where you are with everything. So,
Right. This is a funny application, though, because, building the garage is by right. So then we don't go in front of those other boards for approval. If we needed a variance or zoning relief right up front, it would make more sense probably for us to have gone through that channel first and then backed into you all, knowing what we could or could not have from the zoning level. But when you have a by right application, this really should be kind of one-stop shopping for us, and we should be here and showing you what we've got and giving you our best presentation. And that's kind of what we're doing. But to the extent that it's, hey, go get zoning relief, that's absolutely something somebody else may want to undertake and carry that burden. It's something we've considered, and it's just not something this applicant is willing to consider going forward. It's a battle he's been in before. It's a battle we've all been in before, and it doesn't work for our project. There could be somebody behind us that's willing to undertake that battle. Good luck. So, and we feel like we've done a lot of work to try and give as many options as possible. You know, we really will need some type of at least discussion on the other options to understand where this board is. Even if this board determines to vote that it should not receive a certificate of appropriateness, we definitely would like to know your thoughts on the other options, because we will continue to move forward and pursue other options beyond this, beyond your suggestion. So I think it would be beneficial to at least have that discussion based on the options we have here, understanding full well your preference is the underground garage, and I know what everybody else's preference is as well. So we get it, we did it, we met with staff, and we're going to continue to push on it. If that doesn't work, we just want to have the dialogue to see if any of the other options that we've presented make it any better than our first option. And one last point, and I know this is a very touchy subject, but I think it's important that we at least address the open space, open access, open use issue. This is private property. This is a piece of property that we have under agreement. We want to do right by everyone. But the picnics and the parties that take place on this property are by invitation and not by right. And we want to preserve as much as we can, but we have to remember there are property rights involved here. I think that's important.
I think so too. I was just going to add, I know there's so many things to say. Thank you again for all your attempts, options, interest. You know, I do feel, as Cam was saying, that I guess I want to clarify, when I think and I'm talking open space, I'm not talking about open to use at all. I'm talking about the overall site plan development pattern, traditional development pattern that has been changed. I agree. Every time this building's been adaptively reused, from mansion to hotel to school or school to hotel,
Right.
the open space, open versus void relationship has changed to the point that it's a smaller than ever was before, which is, I feel, why it's more valuable from the overall perspective of big mansion, central point, circular, void, and circle of homes with a boulevard. And that's what I believe strongly is what is most character defining.
Sure.
I love all the architectural details and features given the appropriateness of the void versus open relationship, but I still feel really strongly that the underground addresses that in a very good way. I realize there's other issues here.
Sure.
And all of the other examples, which I'm loving that there's a variety, just don't cut it in my sense to retain that overall character of the district, not just the building or the site. So that's kind of where I was trying to mention.
And we really do understand that. I just felt it important to at least put on the record, this isn't a park.
I hear you.
I think the term that we're trying to strive here is open feeling.
Sure.
It's not open space, it's private property, but it's the open feeling when you walk anywhere around the horseshoe, you see sight lines going straight across, just to clarify. We're in congruence here regarding the private property rights.
And we understand that, and we get that open feel concept. Just based on some of the discussion we heard last month, some of the pictures we saw, it's very easy to paint a picture that is not reality.
Well, from our perspective, that's where we're coming from. We're not talking about public use.
Sure.
You know, that's not the issue at all. I mean, you know, there's a certain amount of, it's kind of like zoning, what we're doing in terms of historic character and development.
Right.
Zoning is there to create separation and air and light and all these things that are good in between construction.
Yeah.
This has its own development pattern that does all that. And in effect, you could say this is not zoned correctly because, they've put this as an R4 and it's this big house on you could cut it up as any way you want, but luckily we're here, not for you, but, for us, we're here to talk about this.
Absolutely.
And, we want to say that the fact that we do have this district allows us to say, hey, this is a value. This was the beginning of Wayne, and we need to keep this piece, the last piece of it, here. And if you can do it underground, and you can do it respectfully to the neighbors, and come in a different way, that's a whole new ballgame right there. I would love to talk about the mansion and how the windows work and all this other stuff, but this thing has to be solved first, and you know that as well.
Absolutely. That's why we're here with a caravan of stuff.
Well, Section 178.7, which is the design guidelines, it defines the Luella Court District. And it's kind of an anomaly because generally you don't have a huge building with these smaller little chickens around the mother hen, which is what you got here. And but that happens to be the character-defining situation. Personally, I'm really tied between the property rights that you have regarding this and the by right issues. But also, as a board, we have to look at the historical character, and that's our role, forgetting about all the other stuff. And in the same section, which is 178-7F2, is preserving the overall relationship amongst the buildings within each district's development pattern. And number 7, which is preserving compatibility with surrounding buildings in each district. They're the two clauses that really hit with me regarding the project. And, I kept on looking at the building, the proposed building. I went out there countless times just walking around, and it's just the mass of that building on top of that lot, which makes that whole area so totally different. And I anguish doing this, believe me, I anguish with this. But when you really look at the scale of the building, and you can quibble about the individual designs. And even if the scale was appropriate, whatever that might be, you still have just a series of a lot of garage doors. It looks like a self-storage operation. I mean, you guys are doing a great job with this, but it's just the location. If those homes weren't around there and you were somewhere else, I think it'd be fine. But our role is to look at the character of the situation. And I, like everyone else, that underground lot would be the perfect solution to this. I mean, would be perfect solution to this. And if that attitude of our board carries over into any further negotiations with the township, it should matter, I think.
In terms of if you needed a variance, is there any way with the underground garage that you could possibly remove 2 spaces? I don't know how much you are over, but would there be any way to remove 2 spaces from the underground garage and put them someplace else on the site so that you would be within the footprint of the variance?
It's really the width of the building that is causing it to go over the setback lines. You need approximately 60 feet, usually an 18-inch parking space at 22-foot drive or 24-foot drive aisle and another 18-foot parking space. So it's the width which is fixed. It can't get any smaller. Eliminating spaces And even if we were to take that garage and only provide one space per unit, it would still exceed the setback lines because of the width of the building.
So that even if you were to slant the spaces so that they're narrower?
Well, you can't really slant them because then you would be forcing people to back out of the parking garage.
I'm just out of curiosity, how much over are you in terms of what they allow?
10 feet.
The setback is 49 feet, the garage is 64 feet, so it splits on either side.
5 and 5 or something like that.
And
It's up to them.
we've asked for a determination if it's underground, and so usually a building setback is to protect the view shed, as you've been talking about, for the neighbors, and it's not a zoning issue as far as the lot's concerned. It's keeping a building that's above ground, as we understand the definition in Radnor's definition of a building.
So that's why I'm saying that, it's underground, it's not affecting anything above. There's probably an argument, and I don't know how far you want to go with it, but there's probably a pretty good argument that what's underground doesn't matter. I mean, that's my feeling.
Yeah.
But I think you could argue that and go through all of the code and everything else and say, that code's for things above ground.
Mm-hmm. We don't disagree with you.
So,
that was the question we presented. And we need a determination from it.
Right.
You'd be surprised how little law there is on this. I thought for sure there'd be something. There's nothing.
let's make it.
So, well, if they agree with us, there's no law to be made. It would just be the way it is. But again, so that's the cart before the horse. It's in front of,
Right.
we've asked for the determination. We believe it to be a viable option.
It might be appropriate right now. I'm interested in hearing what the neighbors have to say after, because I want to thank my architect because he did a phenomenal job over the last month to do what
he
he
did.
has done,
Thank you.
and his staff. I think we've addressed we tried to address every point, not only brought up by the board, but by our neighbors. So, and I say that I consider them neighbors. I haven't heard anything tonight that has caused me pause. I think this building is in need of being restored, and I would like to do that. So I would like to hear from the neighbors. Thank you.
Okay. So we open up for a public comment, and given there's a lot of people here, we're going to have to keep it to 10 minutes a person or less. 5?
1.6 seconds.
If I could just ask, just in the interest of time, just to not have repeat comments, if that's acceptable.
Sure. Any takers? Okay.
No, we're not getting paid by the hour either, so we're going to move it. 5 minutes would seem to me that everybody could do it. Let me tell you something very quickly. I appreciate it. George Strimmel.
State your name, George.
I'm George Strimmel. I live at 47 Luella Court, facing the north side. So probably the least impact, at least visually. But the open visual is an important part of what we're talking about here. That solved moves us closer to something that all could agree to, it would seem to me. You know, I'm reminded very quickly of an old poem that begins, "There were 6 men of Hindustan to learning much inclined, who went to see the elephant, though all of them were blind. We talk about bits and pieces, but we have to look at the totality. And I think you see it and have reflected. It's the totality of this neighborhood that really matters, and that's what we wish to preserve. We don't wish to encroach on anybody's private land, and only did so under invitation and by their leave. We only want to be able to have a special place. Over a decade ago, I came here from a place with 5 bedrooms, a swimming pool, and all the rest, but it was not a neighborhood. This is a neighborhood. That viability, that livability must not suffer. We should all be better at the end of it. It will be a win for those who would develop and a win for those who continue to live there. I think that that's the most important thing. And I must say, at least from what I've heard in your reaction, that you understand. And now let's hope we can make it possible. So I thank you for moving forward.
Thank you.
One comment I would have on that, I mean, I think it's a good point, and what we talked about earlier, the idea of space, but it's not to be confused with use. And if they do the underground garage, and if he wanted to put a fence around it, that's life. But I think the concept is the actual space that's there. So I just wanted to make sure we're not talking about use here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
My name is Susan Bowers, and I live in Luella Court. And I've been reading Chapter 178 of Radnor's Code for Historic Districts. And it just seems to me that this present plan violates many of the stated objectives of this ordinance. And I'd just like to read a couple of them that seem to be violated, as far as I'm concerned, anyhow. It says, this is under intent. This chapter is enacted for the purpose of protecting historic areas located within Radnor Township, of which Luella Court is one of them, for the educational, cultural, economic, and general welfare of the public through preservation, protection, and regulation of buildings in historic interest or importance within the district. It is further the intent of this chapter to safeguard elements of architectural history throughout the districts which have been determined to be of historic significance. And I want to tell you, I live in Luella Court. I live with those windows. These windows don't look at all like the pocket windows that are in there. You can't replace those windows. They should be protected. They're beautiful. They're a piece of architecture that anyone who loves architecture and history would be appalled at the thought of losing those. Under Certificate of Appropriateness, the approval by the township that certifies to the historical appropriateness of a particular request for the erection, addition, demolition, or all of part of the building in the historic district authorizes the application for required permits. Under demolition, the definitions, the dismantling or tearing down of all or part of any building.
Just comment, ma'am. The application that's before us is for the garage, not the house.
But we're talking about...
I understand, but that's not what we're here for today.
If you are an architectural board, I don't understand why you're not.
The application isn't for the building.
It's for buying the building, is it not?
No. The application is for the garage, and that's what we're talking about. I agree with everything you're saying, but that's another issue. That's
Well,
what
John, it does say restore existing mansion. That is part of it. It's not laid out very clearly, but...
I'd like to ask Cass if they have...
on the application.
Are they seeking any preservation credit for restoring this building?
They restore.
You get it. If you are actually restoring a building, the government will give you money for doing that. Are you asking for that?
We are so early in the process here. I just would like to get past this board. I'm hoping that we will have an answer on the garage tonight so that we can proceed forward.
Is that something you would pursue if everything went forward?
We're looking at a number of different avenues, okay? We don't, it's very, very difficult to try to plan when you, I mean, this is a major, as I testified at the last meeting, in order to market and provide the amenities for the 12 new residents that will live in this neighborhood, okay? Right now, there's 25 that are leasing, okay? There are going to be 12 new families that will be purchasing and living there. And they should be afforded the same rights that all the other people that own homes on that street. So I hope we don't lose sight. I appreciate what you just said of why we're here tonight. And I would like to stay on point, if I may ask that. Thank you.
Well, I'll just add one note on the credits. If he was to obtain credits, he'd have to deal with the National Park Service and their standards of rehabilitation, which are much stricter than
Right.
anything in here. So.
He would not get any money from them because he's not restoring the building. He's
Well, we don't know what he's going to do.
Well, I can tell you, if we just pick one point, which apparently we're not supposed to, but taking those pocket windows out is a travesty. But
By the way, just my apology that you're correct that this was on the application.
Pardon me?
On the application was the restoration of the main building, but
Right.
it was very subtle.
Right.
So, but you are correct.
Well, as you can tell by my voice, I'm very passionate about this, and I'm really very nervous about doing this, but I have to do it because I have been raised in historic buildings all my life, and it would be a travesty, in my opinion, to not think of a different option for this building. And I just hope that when you're making your decision, you will think about two different things: the importance of preserving Luella House and the surrounding court intact, so that a major piece of our town's history will be preserved for the current generation and for generations to come to enjoy and learn from. The Changs, who own this property and have owned it for 16 years, have done their best to maintain this building while not destroying its authenticity. They haven't been able to do that very well. But the one thing they have done is they haven't destroyed its authenticity. And I think they should be applauded for that myself. I believe there are a number of investors interested in the value of this concept as well, as restoring the building and keeping its authenticity inside and outside. And hopefully the township could work with such a person to preserve the founder of Wayne's home and much of Wayne's history. And I would like to give an example of where this was done. I go to Cape May and I stay in Congress Hall. I don't know if all of you are familiar with Congress Hall and Cape May. Congress Hall is a big old building that is about the same age as Luella House. It had many famous people stay there, many presidents, as I believe Luella House had a president stay in Luella House, possibly when it was a hotel. Cape May is a poor city, town, but they worked with the owner of that building, and it was restored. It wasn't destroyed. It was restored. All the original things were kept, and they were lovingly preserved, restored. That's what restoring is. Restoring is not taking out the architecture of the building and putting new things that don't look at all like the old building in. And I don't mean to be disrespectful of Cass and his architects, but they're totally different. And I would hope that our township would think about doing something like Cape May did with Congress Hall and preserve Wayne's beautiful mansion. I also hope that you will ponder the quality of life that hangs in the balance for the 50 or so families that call Luella Court home, and the value of such a community to Wayne as a whole. I mean, it's a rare community. I feel fortunate to have called it home for over 16 years. And as far as the land not being, it's private land, one of the things about Luella Court that is so wonderful is that the people like each other. And if you kept Luella Court as an apartment, you wouldn't have those privacy issues as much, and the people could still have their parties there. It's a real community that loves the spot they're in and their neighbors, and it's worth preserving. It's totally worth preserving. You know, I'm a country girl. I grew up on an old Pennsylvania farmhouse and thought I would never like living in a city. And I have to tell you, because of this Luella Court, I do love living in Wayne. And I hope you'll think about those two things as you make this decision. And thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Patty Poole, and I live at 41 Luella Court. I've lived there for 25 years in my house. Now, I understand this whole meeting, I had a whole bunch of things I wanted to say, but I'm going to keep it brief because we're just focusing on these garages, correct? Correct. We're focusing strictly on the garages. On the existing property under the of Luella House or Luella Mansion, there is a garage on that property. And Cass has suggested that they demolish that garage. That garage was included in the historical certification of the property and as an accessory to the property, in my understanding, cannot be removed from the property. Am I correct or am I not correct?
I think we have to vote on that. I don't know.
It's a decision, I mean, no one
haven't-
here
we
can
haven't
say
voted on
no or
anything
yes.
yet.
We can recommend.
Pardon me?
No one here says yes or no. We can recommend to the commissioners whether any of these choices, including demolition addition, which we're talking about, and the garages or additions, are appropriate.
I see, but if it is under the historical registration that we got, is it not considered a permanent part of that property as an historical property?
It's definitely, like you said, a part, whether it's a garage or not, main building, it's all part of the resource that's the district that's considered significant. And so you're right about that, but demolishing this garage as it all gets adaptively reused is, I guess, the question of is that the deal breaker? Is that adversely affecting the overall character of the district?
Because in my estimation, if you look where the garage is located, there's no possibility for Cass to build his proposed or his very, very varied proposals on the property at all.
Yeah, the question is if tearing down an accessory building would have a significant impact on historic aspects of that property and that neighborhood. So that's the question. That would be the question regarding any tear down. And we've dealt with that issue a number of times here. So it's just a question of whether that is going to affect the historic aspects of the building.
But since it's under the historic...
Because it's under the historic umbrella, that's why it's in front of us to begin with. If it wasn't, we wouldn't be concerned.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks.
Hello, I'm Susan Byrne from Luella Court. I have a couple questions. Having been through this process with different boards for many years, I understand that sometimes in the development process, layers get a little confusing. So one of the layers I think is worth clearing up right now, just so everyone understands going forward. And maybe we've gotten different information, but we have been in discussion with Matt, and it is not a by right plan. Did you hear differently than that?
It's zoning by right. It would go before land development. That's zoning by right.
Right. Well, see, that sometimes the audience gets confused when specifics to your profession are used specifically like that.
Can you quickly just say what that is, just quickly though?
Basically, we would not need zoning relief to build what we're proposing to build. It's recently been determined we would need subdivision approval or land development approval, and that would not be to build this garage. it would be to turn the units into condominiums. Pursuant to the municipality's planning code, they define land development as condominium. But that would be a very simple, kind of a one-page plan. But that is an aspect of moving forward, but that has nothing to do with whether or not it's a by right zoning application. We would need relief to build it. It would just be a process.
Right.
Wouldn't go right to building permit.
Thank you.
But it does go through planning, zoning, shade tree, everything else. It kicks it into the right process as opposed to having something that you're just allowed to do without any problems. Now, as I look at, I have a letter from one of the owners in the neighborhood. I've forwarded it to you all. Do you want me to give you a copy of it now to read? It's someone from Eda Enterprises who's not interested in having, I don't know if that fits the, if I'm allowed to do that or not allowed to do that. Would you like a copy? She couldn't be here for a meeting.
What does this do?
This is a note. We have, of course.
Is that email that you sent today?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Would you like it on paper
No,
or not
no.
particularly? And generally, they are not in favor of the garage above surface. Now, then. Well, I wasn't going to admit it as an exhibit.
You submitted it to the board. I think we should get a copy.
I'll give you my stuff if you give me your stuff.
Everything we've given them, you can have.
Right, it goes both ways.
I can buy, huh?
It does go both ways.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. There you go.
Thank you.
No, we've been so focused on these garages that we haven't looked at some of the other things that are going on, which I think are important to note, because I think they do represent things within the guidelines that are of historic significance. And also have a bearing on the welfare of the neighborhood, which is also within your purview, as I understand it. So, several things are being demolished. I think the thing that crushes me the most is a beautiful set of stone steps over here that's about 5 feet wide. That's coming out. And that side entrance is coming out. Under the design guidelines, entrances should not be changed. As I think, as I read it, that could be an issue for you, so I'm just pointing you in that direction. The other piece of the demolition that upsets me is that there's the sidewalk in the back here, and here. That's all being removed. So that's the pathway that people use that live in the building to get around the building, to wave to their neighbors, to do anything that is normally something that we cherish on the court. This elimination, I believe, is probably being done to get closer to the impervious surface regulations. But what that will do is that will destroy half of the neighborhood. So instead of having 25 apartments with residents and maybe 19 or 20 of the cottages, they'll pull into the driveway, they'll have no place to walk, they won't want to walk across their lawn, they'll go inside, they won't be neighbors, they'll be occupants. And I have a problem with that. That's going to affect my health and welfare, so I'm bringing it up. Now, for my presentation, and I will be brief, this is context again for people who are watching at home. This is not a map of the district, it's a zoom in of the overlay of the Wayne Business District overlay, so it includes everything that surrounds the cottages and the shops along the court. They're all within our district. Which
It's
is
not
that,
showing up. Do you have
Pardon?
anything on there
Oh.
now?
There we go.
I got nothing. There it
Okay.
is.
Okay, hold on. This is different than my, oh, there it is. Okay, that's giving you context. The 3 houses on the top left corner are not included in the district, but the stores along the boulevard are. That's the layering effect that, Beverly, you'll recognize because you wrote the ordinance, or you wrote the packet for us, and that's that layering that Luella Court provides that is so rare these days and such a great example of the way our ancestors lived and what brought us to this point today. So here's a very brief history. For anyone else who doesn't know this is educational as well. I'll skip right to the point where Drexel and Childs got the property in 1880, expanded the building early in the 1880s as a hotel and a school. The twins and the cottages were added in the 1920s and 30s, and the district has remained largely unchanged for the last 80-plus years. The mansion today is only on 1.3 acres, so there's very little left, and I think it's very much worth mentioning. This comes to us from a friend who is a graduate student at Cornell in historic preservation planning. This is a 3D model of the mansion as it exists today. Now, I'm not including some of the other things that I included in the last presentation because we're trying to avoid redundancy, but I think this one's worthwhile. This is as it is today. This is the Plan A with the garage of choice, your garage of choice. You see there's very little left. Now, the driveways in the current plan have changed. They're now paver pathways. They're not driveways. But this is what it looks like for now. And then when I was thinking about it this week, preparing the presentation, I thought, you know, all the things I showed you last week were from the perspective of the neighbors. But I believe that this historic asset of Radnor that should be important at some level to people in North, South, and Luella Court deserves the perspective that other people will have beyond just our little neighborhood. So you've seen this drawing before. This is looking up on Lancaster Avenue from Cowan's Flowers. This is today. This is tomorrow. This is people riding the train, looking into Luella Court. This is today. This is tomorrow. So if the garages are done above ground, it will be seen by everyone going east-west on the train, walking along Lancaster, having a meeting, or this will begin to represent the town more. And which representation would you prefer? It's viewable by pedestrians, cars, trains. The only thing I can't think would see it would be a plane. Is that what we want? There we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Cindy Munger, and I live at 31 Luella Court, and I'm going to be very brief. First, I want to tell you that you heard us, and thank you. I mean, you remembered the spirit of the Historical Advisory Board, and we are here as neighbors. We want to make this perfectly clear because we want you to deny this. We don't want you to be worried about whether it can be pushed through zoning or what can happen, because even though you're grappling with it, and it's a fair grapple in terms of development versus parking, from a historical perspective, those garages have no place above ground. Second point, there is precedence in terms of ordinance and variance and changes in other cities. I spent the last 2 weeks researching about 500 pages of what people in your position do in other cities in terms of the issue of how to manage parking in a historic area. The reason being is you can't impede development, you can't impede profitability, and person have the rights of their personal property. But you can't protect a historic district if you allow the urban animal to be the automobile. It doesn't work. There are a lot of areas that have grappled. Chicago, I researched New England, Boston, Providence, Pittsburgh. There are even developments in Harrisburg. What we are asking you to do is to follow your charter as the Harb, based on the original plan. Deny this. Give us time to look for solutions, including the underground parking, which I do not believe was appropriately explored. And I think there are other opportunities that could be explored. And only with your denial do we get the opportunity to look for another way. And I think that's what everybody's saying. even though we fight over windows and things, and I think it's very important to maintain the history, what we're really talking about is how do you preserve this community, which you saw, which everybody sees, and how do we deal with the parking issue? The third point I want to make briefly is that in your own plan, the historical and archaeological resources within that comprehensive plan, by definition, you talk about the trees as part of the history. And there are even about 6 or 7 species of those trees and their age that is described as part of the historical and archaeological resource. So you may even have precedence in terms of that open space being historical and being part of the historic district that could be under your purveyance and charter for protection. Just that you might want to explore that, because the original plan, I read it, I read 161, I read the ordinance it's based on, I read all the acts in the state of Pennsylvania, and I think there may be some precedents that by nature of those heritage trees, that there may be a reason for you to preserve that even as much as the building. And even in your own ordinance, there's contradiction in terms of the definition of district versus building. So just want to leave you those thoughts. Please deny it for our sake so we can at least look for other ways of dealing with the issue, including the underground parking. There is precedence, and it is being done in other cities. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity. I'm Michael Lefkowitz from 25 Luella Court. And at risk of alienating my neighbors a little bit, I have to object to the underground option as it was presented tonight for a couple of reasons. One is that to 25 or maybe 23 or our neighbors on the other side, it's going to present this gaping hole in the ground when we look out our front windows. And I think
Excuse me, sir. See that drawing there? Can you point where your house is?
Mm-hmm. And so it would be, we're at that low spot, and where they, for obvious reasons, geographic reasons, want to put that entrance. And the other thing is that's also the sharpest part of the turn of Luella Court. It's already a bad place to drive around, and that would simply make it worse. People would be trying to make this extremely sharp turn in and out of that property. And particularly out is a concern. The sight lines are miserable. So I would urge, if an underground option is being considered, that some other way of getting in and out of there be considered as part of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be really brief. My name is Judy Strimmel. I live on Luella Court. I want to hark back to the trees issue. And it's my understanding, and I could be totally incorrect, that with the underground structure, all the trees would be taken down also. Is that true?
We haven't really gotten that far with it, but
Okay.
we're going one step at a time here.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about, but that is of great concern to me, is the preservation of the trees. I guess I just want to continue to say that I think that the renovation, restoration, redoing of the mansion is probably going to end up to be somewhat of a positive thing. Why can't it just be done without any garages, above ground or underground? That's my major comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have one for them too? Okay, thank you.
I'm going to be repeating what a number of people have said, but I believe that it is important.
Excuse me, could you grab the
Oh,
mic?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'll be repeating what some of the other people said. When the Harb first was introduced to us, North Wayne was the first community to do it. We immediately on Luella Court said, oh, we want this for ourselves. When you look under A on the first page, it's talking about property values and how a Harb can help protect property values. Our concern is with the garages for our small units facing into these garages, and the fact that the garage doors are going to be open and shutting and open and shutting. You can't just look at a sample. The renderings are beautiful, but they are still garages. This is not a sun porch addition, to a building. It's the usage also that we have to take into consideration. The other one is the aesthetically pleasing, increasing livability and desirability for the community. I feel that the garages above ground fail in that respect. Supply a visible connection of our shared heritage, which offers social, cultural, and educational benefits. I believe so strongly that the Luella Mansion is, yes, a private property, but it is something that belongs to all of us as residents. We're going to be gone, and it's still going to hopefully be here. And it was here before I came along. And so wanting to preserve that. We have a map over our fireplace that dates back to the 1913 map, and you have Luella Mansion, and you have the Woodley Estate, and then you have the Bellevue. And you have the circular drives coming up from Lancaster Pike, and then the one in front of Woodley, and then the one in front of the Bellevue. And as you walk around the court in the evening, we're able to see the steeple that Askins gave the land for the building of that church. We're able to see the Wayne Hotel that was built after the Bellevue burned down, and we're also able to see the light on top of the tower. And we know that that's where the Bellevue was. And for the people in Wayne who love the historical aspects, we know that these were two sister hotels, and that they had the sleigh rides, going back and forth and taking the people all the way up to Bryn Mawr and then coming back. That they would have the sleighs taking them over to the Bellevue that had the larger grounds for their cultural events in the Aztec Room, I think it was. They had one fabulous room where they did a lot of the entertaining. There were, and then they went down to the Lyceum, which is what Askins basically, had built. I can't think of a more important building in Wayne that we want to preserve. And in looking at this map, and then looking at the development and the changes that have taken place, when you walk around the court and you look down in through the little sections of homes, you look down towards Lancaster Pike. We know that the driveway coming up from American Bank, where that entrance is, was the original, pathway that came up to the original part of the bank. As you look down the boulevard where the stores are, the original was this paisley flower arrangement that they did in the Victorian time. And there are photographs of that which neighbors and I are trying to get together so that we can do a whole history of this court and present it to a book form, to the library and to the Historical Society, because we feel that we have pictures and they've been in the newspapers, but not the whole history, and that this is an important asset for the town of Wayne. It's also honoring three very, very important people. It's Askins, who first came here. And then it's also honoring the architectural, that this is the most magnificent building of this time period. The ones on Bloomingdale are spectacular. And then when Drexel came with Childs, we went into another aspect of architectural. There is a wonderful book by Dan Rothenberg about Drexel. He is referred to in the entire Radnor Historical Society as Drexel and Childs as developers. He was an international banker. He was known around the world. He was asked by President Grant to be his Secretary of the Treasury, and they. I could go on and on and on about Drexel and Childs.
Just, can you get to your point?
Right. But the thing is that when we're talking about preserving an area, we're talking about preserving a district. This is not just, a private, property that we're talking about. It is the historical district, and each one of these districts, these 3 districts, has, they're slightly different. And this one, as you put the different layers of the maps on, from the time that it was the mansion to the hotel to the stores coming in and to the ring of homes around it, they're all consistent. My house is 17, but we also own 29, which is right on the curve. Under the original mansion, that footprint for that house, 29, is exactly where the footprint for the stone accessory building, was. And so this is what we're trying to maintain, is this whole concept. We've lost the rest of it going westward, and this is all that remains of it. And what's wonderful is that in all of this time, from the very beginning in 1865 to the present day, you can still, as you walk around it, feel that sense of history from the time of the original mansion, to now. And this is what we would like to have preserved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again. I'm Mark D'Onofrio, and I am a restoration contractor that operates in the main line. And I just wanted to call into question the Hatteras roof, the proposition for that. Does the board think that this looks like a slate roof? Does this look like a slate roof?
No. Be careful putting it down so you don't hurt yourself.
I'm pretty sure.
What's the address again? I didn't get it.
My address?
Your address?
The company or
Your address.
do I have to give my address?
Yes.
You're supposed to, yeah.
Oh, fine. 15 Arthur Road, Bryn Mawr.
You're a resident of Radnor Township?
Yes.
I'm just asking, I've taken notes on all the rest of you. It's a very reasonable question. Thank you.
Yes, and since I'm a restoration contractor,
You could swing that mic around
Um,
towards you.
Hey,
maybe I should just talk really loud because I got a booming voice. I'm a restoration contractor, and I know my crew can fix up that slate roof. So the claim that there's no viable contractor that can restore that roof, I believe is false, because my firm and my father's firm has been restoring slate roofs in the main line we've been in business for over 40 years. So I'm confident that we can restore that roof. And that's like the one point I want to make. Actually, I can make a second point. I think the tax credit is a very important issue, because if you build that garage, it will preclude financing for the tax credit, because the state SHPO is not going to allow that building and grant a 20% tax credit if you get the nomination for National Register status. Now, since the building is so old, you could get a 10% tax credit since any building built prior to 1936 and it's a historic building, you can possibly qualify for that. So I would just ask the board to consider the tax credit option because I think that's very relevant to this case. But the one thing I will say, I don't want to demonize the developer. The Hatteras is a very good roof. It's just, I don't believe, in my experience, that it's compatible with the slate roof. And I have some bit of expertise in addition to being a contractor. I have a dual master's in historic preservation and city planning at University of Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
My name's Patrick Nolan, and I live on 27 West Avenue, Wayne, and my son lives directly in the mouth of the entrance to the buried park, 27 Luella Court.
Point on that map.
He would be right here. Okay. And so tonight, after seeing these, it gives me a little bit more reason to want to say something. I'm going to try to be as brief as I can. I'm not going to carry on like last time. The one thing, however, as a preface, I would like to just say, I'm sure you all realize, virtually everything I'll say, you realize either instinctively or notionally, but when free space becomes rarer and rarer, that space actually becomes more sacred. And I don't mean to play lightly with that word, because free space, open view, as was referred to earlier, goes to the heart, goes to the core.
Open feeling.
Open feeling? All right. I'm not going to debate that one. And so openness, especially without a garage, is going to keep what I call life going on in that space. Even if the life is just grass, even if the life is just trees and squirrels, even if the life is flowers and bushes, or shade and the way light dapples through trees and gets threaded through trees with the intricacy that it has. This is all conducive to producing that open feeling. Now, what I wanted to do prior to coming here, and I did not prepare as well as these ladies, I asked myself one question, and the question was, what makes Wayne Wayne? And everybody has his own relationship to that. And so I suppose basically what I'm going to be doing is just giving you my sense of what makes Wayne Wayne. One of the first things is that it is built almost on a village character. And as a matter of fact, it likes to advertise itself in that fashion as the village of Wayne, which implicitly begins to impose a certain kind of body of notion about Wayne. The first notion is it's small. It's not overbuilt. It's not overdone. It doesn't have a failed proportion of monstrous buildings and then ordinary buildings, except for one, which I'll mention in a moment. And it has the mixture of Victorianism, which takes you, not one building is exactly the same, and probably about 80% of the homes in Wayne, whereas the storage locker, metaphor tends to, run contrary to that phenomenon. And it's got a low profile. I mentioned this the last time, and there's almost a balance between earth and sky, which is really very, very nice. The only other thing, other than, as I'll mention here in a moment, that is perhaps overdeveloped in relationship to its surroundings is the mansion. The mansion is huge. And the mansion has problems as a result of being huge. Not that the problems are inherent in itself, but the problems now are inherent in 12 units requiring 24 parking spaces. Now, one of the things, therefore, about Wayne is that it's very balanced. It has a balance in terms of its shops. It's got a shoemaker. My God, you won't find a shoemaker in every small town. It's got a barber. It's got a movie house. It's got a raft of churches, a raft of restaurants, and it has variety and it has balance as principal features of what makes Wayne Wayne. And the one building that overwhelms Wayne is the AT&T building. I live in the shadow of that building. May, June, July, August, that building hides the sun from my house from 8:15 to 9:30. That is massive. That is ugly. You almost, cringe as you walk the sidewalk either before it or beside it. Not because in itself it is all that bad, fitted as it is to its purposes, but in relationship to the environment, that is gargantuan. And so it does not purport to fit this sense of village smallness. Now, the last time I was here, I happened to say something that I felt very strongly about then, and I still feel strongly about now, that, nothing was something. No space was something very, very, very real. And that nothing there, open space, this is one of the last spots. You mentioned it tonight. It's one of the very last spots.
I think your word was, nothing is something.
Yes, nothing is something. Thank you. God, you listened and I didn't.
No, I thought it was good soundbite.
But it's part of what gives Wayne balance, that you do have something rare that you are trying to keep rare. There isn't anything along Lancaster Pike that I know of, Ardmore, Bremar, Rosemont, Paoli, Berwyn, that has an access from Lancaster Avenue that goes off 75 yards and has that kind of truly unusual community. Truly unusual community. And what I'm going to ask you to do for a moment is I'm going to ask you to just entertain the idea of what is the quality of nothing. All right? What is the quality of nothing? Now, apart from its not meaning no asphalt, no concrete, nothing man-made, no vinyl, no inert edifice. It means the absence of all these things. And the reason I want to emphasize that for a moment is I want to provide you with a couple of practical instances of examples of the quality of nothing. You go to a good restaurant, early evening, with your wife, with your husband. You have the option of picking a couple of tables. Somebody asks you where you would like to seat. Where would you like to be seated? By the window. almost everyone would choose and opt to sit by the window. Why? Open view, open feeling. There's something about this open feeling that goes to the core of somebody's own being. Openness and the sense of freedom that openness of view even provides is very telling and very real. I like to go to Valley Forge Park, walk there every Sunday. There are a couple thousand people up there every Sunday, running, rollerblading, walking, taking the dogs, etc. What are they up there enjoying? A respite from the immediacy of surfaces, the immediacy of things, the immediacy of being overwhelmed by the world of detail. Openness opens out the spirit. You go to the beach, what's one of the first things you want to do? You want to walk the beach. You don't want to sit in the sand, you want to walk the beach.
Sir, we're going to have to wrap it.
Okay,
Sorry.
I'm going to wrap it up.
I'm enjoying this, but
I'm going to be very quick about it now. In each case, it's openness that makes the experience the most deep and real. And what we have in this particular case is people get the chance for part of themselves to be returned to themselves. You get lost in the world of business. I'm sure you guys get lost in the rattle of what you're doing during the day and also in this. And you need that release. Openness provides that. But with this project, the neighborhood is not going to have that. They're not going to have that again. Once done, this is done forever, which makes it so vital in your sense of making a decision. And what I wanted to mention, in relationship to that space, in terms of what was presented earlier, to preserve the relationship of the space, to preserve patterns in relationship to other buildings, all right? That series of garages connected to that mansion is the same thing as the AT&T monster is to the immediate block and surroundings in which it is placed. It overwhelms space, and it's going to overwhelm spirit. With that, then, I would close for this. Talked about history the last time. There's also a kind of tax history. One of the things that was remarkable to me last week was to hear somebody say that there were 4 generations living in that one house. That's 4 generations of taxpayers. No, 3 generations of taxpayers. You've got, I don't know how many decades of tax paying going on and having been going on from that little community that has helped make Wayne Wayne. And now you are the stewards of that space, and you have an awful lot to juggle, and I'm only implying my prejudice and hope that somehow or other it creeps into the spiritual realm. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe.
Is this loud enough? Is this loud enough? Okay. Hi, my name's Richard O'Neill. I'm owner on Luella Court. I want to thank you folks, as George put very well, I think, for understanding the nature of the area. I've never been to one of those barbecues on the patio or on the side yard there, so I won't, that means nothing to me, but I do like the open space. It's part of the neighborhood. It's part of the character of it. I'm a guy that generally, I'm not a suburban guy, but I love Luella Court. It's got this cute little feel that's very hard to describe. I love all the neighbors. I don't know many people in the suburbs that know their neighbors the way people in Luella Court know each other. It's beautiful. I live in the city. We know our neighbors because we're on top of each other. But in Luella Court, it's really quite special. In the 80s, I was a builder and project manager, oversaw 300 sites, and now I'm a sculptor. I've done sculptural restoration, so that's sort of my capitalist. I'm a capitalist. I enjoy making money and understand that aspect of it, but I've also worked with the Philadelphia Art Preservation Board doing sculptural restorations, did the fountain at the top of the Philadelphia Museum of the Arts, so that's my aesthetic bona fides, for lack of a better terms, or whatever. And besides the fact that it chokes up the entire area and closes it in, as the gentleman before said, they look awful. I mean, Susan's renderings showed them, and I'm an artist, so I'm not gonna, they're awful. I mean, they may have taken some time to change it a little bit. I'm an artist, I've worked for other people, and they don't like it, so you do the cheapest rendering to make them happy and shut them up so they can make your money. You've been so civil, I wouldn't have even felt comfortable bringing that up, but when the gentleman said, don't hurt yourself with the shingles, felt a little bit of bullying going on, and I don't respond well to that, so I just wanted to mention that. And I've also been watching the gentleman in the camel hair coat look incredibly annoyed, like we're just
Can you
the
keep your
biggest
comments to the
nuisance.
historical aspects of the neighborhood,
Okay,
please?
so regarding that, I just think that big, beautiful area is wonderful. I don't see how you don't destroy it without putting in a building. And again, thank you so much. You've all spoken to this, and you understand that and appreciate that. I thank you very much.
Thanks.
Hi, Jim Schneller. I live in St. David's Park, but I'm a 40-year resident, and the court and, of course, the hotel are a treasure to me, like so many Radnorites. And I wanted to say I thought that there was a wonderful point made about the doors and windows that might be sealed or otherwise altered, and especially for non-use. I think that it's important that they come into use. There should be an openness as far as neighborhood character, and if it is just a one entrance or a carport, you're eliminating needlessly, really, people's ability to walk and to have ambiance with their neighbors. And I have another point I wanted to make is that I think authenticity is crucial. I mean, really, we can't look past that. Wayne may have and Radnor may have a lot of good treasures, but this place is like the Captain Nemo's underground submarine. It's got a lot of detail that would be fascinating. And, we had the Devon Hotel, and that's gone. So there's a lot of impetus to make this a hotel to treasure forever.
Thank you. I think we probably have to wrap this. Has everybody had enough? Anybody want to start commenting, or are we done commenting? Or
Yeah, we should have some discussion. So we have, I guess, 4 different alternatives that have been presented. 3 of them are above-ground alternatives, and the 4th is an underground, which remains to be seen if that's viable or not. My thoughts on this are, I think that, actually, I think the way the design of the garages worked very well with the house, and if that's all we were looking at here, it would, I would have no problem in agreeing that fit in with the historical aspects of that property. It's the scale of the project that I'm a bit concerned about. I think that that the space that we've been talking about tonight is a part of the historical review and the aspects that we need to consider. And that's one of the things that I'm a bit troubled on here. If it was half the size it was, I might feel differently. Now, my other concern here is that we have someone willing to repair that mansion. And I am concerned that that maybe people in the future, if Mr. Holloway is no longer interested, may not be so sentimental regarding keeping that mansion in place. And we could see a real AT&T tower sitting there someday. So that is, that is my concern. But I think that, to the extent that if we vote to deny this application, that's going to be, we're an advisory board, and we're going to make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, and then they will have final say on whether the application is denied or not. And I guess all I would say is when it gets to that next level, which it most likely will, I think all the neighbors have to kind of take into account what the big picture is here, and that's saving that mansion. So that's all I need to say on that.
You did? How about you guys?
I think that I just want to reiterate something that John said, which is when we review a project, it's our job to review a project in the context of a historical review, whether the building and the site are being correctly restored or maintained or whatever, but it's really in the context of history as far as I see it. I understand the emotions that go with it, but I really do believe that when we are looking at a project, whether it's this project or putting a dormer or whatever, I think that it has to be done in the context of the history, and I do think that the open space in this particular project is just as important to the building as anything else, and I think it's very important. So I think that that's been demonstrated, and as George said, if the garages were someplace else, that would be different. But I still, the other point I just want to make real briefly is that in terms of underground garages, I just don't know that every alternative has been explored, because how about having a double layer of underground if you're going underground, for example, or how about splitting some of the spaces in one place and possibly being able to put them in another area of the property? I don't know that because I'm not a practicing architect like that, but it just seems to me that there might be other alternatives, and I'm not willing to approve a project which is so crucial to the town without really having explored these options. I think you did a good job doing the above-ground rendering and so forth, but I think the more I thought about it between last session and this session, and hearing the neighbors and going to the Historical Society and looking up the history and reading the ordinances and so forth, I just think it's the underground option really is the only way to go. And I also think that there's certainly problems with perhaps with the one that was issued, but the fact that not just the footprint of the garage, but people brought up where it was where people would enter and so forth. I think everything needs to be looked at, and I would love to see a little bit more thought put into that before approving the project.
I agree with what everyone here said, so I won't repeat myself, but I did want to mention the historic tax credits is a really smart win-win for everyone, I think, and I'd love if you're considering that to ask more questions at some point or if you need more advice about well, how to guard your project to keep that open for yourselves, because there's a 20% huge savings of your rehabilitation, your project, total project cost, which is great. And I think underground parking will keep that possibility for historic tax credits, as well as other issues of how you deal with windows. But you should think of all those pieces as you're moving forward, because that's a great savings. And that could balance some of the potential saving the windows if you think it's going to cost more money to, and they can be very energy savings as well, but that could offset some of those costs if they're going to be more expensive, but I don't know. So it's a win-win. So I hope that you keep that open, but I love the underground for all the reasons everyone said, and I think it's the one viable way to make this work. But there are options with an underground, obviously.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Beverly. I appreciate all the effort that went into the above ground, but the underground seems to be, it suits all of the needs of what we're trying to save here, which is that character defining court, open space feel, private space, but it's still an open space. I couldn't approve the one that's been presented tonight due to the entry issue, but I'd love to see you explore that and go through whatever you feel you're willing to go through, for sure, to try to make that work. And I think that's probably what we need to just vote on tonight, is that. Anything else? Well, I think we've seen, at least the way I interpret it, we've seen nothing here tonight that we can improve. But we are saying that we like the underground option the best, and it would be our suggestion to pursue that. So it's a pretty straightforward vote, I think. You either are for the options put before us or not. I think that's how it works, isn't it, George?
Well, I guess you can make a motion to deny the application as submitted. I guess that'll be a motion.
All right.
And
Second.
well, yeah, and for our records, we should quote, what the hell is it? Here we go. Section 178-7F 2 and 7 of the guidelines as our primary
Yeah, that'll be set forth in the letter.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to reiterate that we do, just what you said about okay. You make the motion, second it?
All in favor of denying?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous? Thank you for all your work. Anybody need a break? Thank you. We do have any new business or old business to go through? Nothing? All right. We'll close.